Hello, everyone. Welcome into our latest live broadcast. Today, it is the 8th of June, 2025. It's Sunday, and I want to continue on where we left off Friday with regards to putting in our cooler. Now, as I edited out of a members-only video, we talked about the ignorance of the motherboard manufacturers or the intentional deception of ignoring Intel power level or power limit specifications and not even offering you the real Intel default power specifications. They don't say anything about it. They don't warn you on the box that they have exceeded them. They don't warn you on the box of what they should be set at according to Intel. And they don't warn you or even offer you a BIOS setting that is already applied in a profile, but you must go into the deep bowels of the BIOS and understand how to find the PL1 or short term, and PL1 would be the long term, and then PL2 short term, and then to know what those numbers are supposed to be, how to change them. What a complete disrespect, deception from all motherboard makers right now. All the big ones, Asus, ASRock, MSI, and Gigabyte, are all ignoring Intel recommended specifications, and as far as I can tell, none of them are offering the Intel default specifications, which is wow. Like, if there's not going to be a lawsuit on this, I will be shocked. A class action lawsuit's got to be coming, because the way the motherboard manufacturers are doing this is they are not being transparent to the customer. And when I contacted support about it, they suggested my cooler wasn't good enough because they were cooking my CPU. Basically, if you were to follow the baking directions of some food you bought at the grocery store and you ignored them and you set your oven on broil instead of setting it on the recommended temperature and you burn the crap out of the food, that ends up meaning that you just lost money. Well, you could say you should have followed the directions. That would clearly be your fault. You'd have no one to blame but yourself. But when you trust in a product, and especially when two different manufacturers have to work together, Intel needs to work with the motherboard makers, and the motherboard makers need to work with Intel. And so when the motherboard makers start playing games and doing it in a manner that is intentionally hidden from the public, that is absolutely not brought up during tech support. When I reach out to tech support, never once did they suggest I check my PL1 and PL2 settings. Never once do they offer the correct PL1 or PL2 settings. The fact the subject's not even brought up. So this is done with intention, and it's done it's a blame game, right? They're going to blame your cooler. The cooler is going to say, no, you didn't install it correctly. Or perhaps the cooler manufacturer is wise enough to this to say, look, these motherboard manufacturers are cooking your chips, and there's no default option for you to pick. They're all wrong. Every one of them is wrong. None of them follow the published standard that Intel makes available. It's very easy to look it up. So there's no excuse for it. It is intentional deception, and we shouldn't stand for it as consumers. We need to call this out. The reason I bring it back up after making the video yesterday was this cooler right here. This is a 360 millimeter cooler, which, and here's something else for you to consider, when I purchased it about 6 months ago, was $350. Today, it's same cooler, $280. So there's no benefit to buying parts ahead of time. If you're thinking, hey, I want to build a computer, let me go and get some parts now and I'll get some parts later, and then when I get all the parts, I'll build it, you'll spend about $200 or $300 on average more, depending on how much time you're taking between part purchase. Because everything you're buying, except for a case and power supply, is depreciating in price. RAM has come down. Motherboards have sort of gone up from a couple of years ago, but in the last couple of months, when they're first introduced, it still follows the same pattern. So if we stretch the timeline out, all right, there is a shift in the economy that affects everything. And if you happen to be buying during that shift, right, and you're going to build within, say, I'd say 2 months, It's possible that you can get everything a little bit cheaper, but that is so against the odds. Unless you have a crystal ball and know when that's going to happen to the economy, what is more than likely going to happen is this example right here. $350 plus sales tax. Today, in fact, here, let me show you. We'll go over to Amazon. If I waited until I actually needed this and ordered it, let's say last week, instead of paying $350, I would have paid $279. That is a significant difference. There's a $70 price difference. And all it did for that $70 was sit here on my shelf, completely shrink wrapped, brand new. And I paid $70 of rent money to keep it here until I needed it. Now, that wasn't my intention. When I ordered it, I had the intention of using it right away. But we ran into some space issues on this case, and another alternative just happened to show up at the door with the Asus ProArt build. And so that gave me an opportunity to start over again for the purpose that we were building this, and then to come back and revisit this as time permitted, since it no longer served any need that we had. So one project leads to another project. Could go to mini PCs and routers and repairs and diagnostics and questions and answer sessions, and we come around 6 months later and we finally can get back to this. Actually, prior to the 6 months, we gutted it. We took everything back out and we made another build out of those parts in a more appropriate case. So while all of this was not planned for, it needed to be handled, and this became less of a priority, and it just sat until today. So I'm going to unwrap this and get it installed. I've never worked with a Tryx branded anything. I've never seen this cooler before in real life, and I think it's going to look great in here. And we're going to test, just leaving the motherboard as it is. I don't think I've adjusted anything on this board. We're going to see if this keeps everything cool. If everything's staying cool, then we don't have to worry about the PL1 or PL2. But when you're putting in a big expensive cooler, or heck, even if you're putting in an inexpensive cooler that is supposed to be able to cool the new Ultra series of Intel chips, and yours is not cooling, it's not you, it's not your cooler, it's your motherboard manufacturer omitting critical information to their default settings that they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know this. If they wanted you to know, they would have put a big notice inside of the box with the motherboard saying, hey, be aware that out of the box, this thing does not follow Intel's power specification. Then they would also say, in no way can you set it back to Intel's default specifications, because we don't give you that option in a profile. All of the profiles you see, there's 3 profiles defaulted on an ASRock BIOS. Not a single one of them will follow Intel's recommended spec, and you will have to dive down deep into the BIOS as a very technical person to figure out where those settings are and what they're supposed to be. And then the system will run the way Intel intended it to run and the way the cooler manufacturer was planning to cool it. So it's up to you if you wish to juice the heck out of your processor just to get a little tiny more performance at a cost of killing the processor earlier, as well as a higher electric bill. That's on you. But what I don't like is that most people have no idea this is happening. And furthermore, the reason why should offend you. There needs to be more transparency. There needs to be default settings out of a box, and let the technical people who know how crank up those specs if they choose to. But for the rest of us, that should be all default out of the box. Nothing should be tweaked beyond Intel specs, and if it is, there should be a large notice right on top of the box or right inside of the documentation, like a big warning, like a yellow piece of paper or a sticker on the motherboard, something that you must look at, that you cannot avoid, that tells you we are not following Intel specs on this board. And so if you result in overheating problems and loud fans, you need to go in and put it back to the way Intel wanted it, not the way we set it. Can you imagine if motherboard manufacturers were that honest? We're causing your problems? But no, they're still causing your problems, but they're not telling you. And even when you contact support, they don't even recommend it. The subject isn't even brought up. That's how deep this lie goes. So for you guys watching, if you're running an Intel-based processor, and if you are dealing with some issues where it does get hot or your fans are getting loud, it doesn't cost you anything to check those PL1 and PL2 settings and stop relying on the default profiles. Just throw them away. They're meaningless. They're not default. They're default should define what Intel specifications are, but the motherboard makers have redefined the word default to what they want. The motherboard makers, even though it's your CPU and it's your cooler, they're not warranting those things. That's on you. But yet they're defining how they're going to torture them, and they won't even be honest with you and tell you they're doing it. That's just brand new out of the box. That's you doing everything right. You put the whole thing together perfectly. You've installed everything correctly, and now you're having an overheat problem, and you reach out to support and they say, oh, well, what cooler are you using? This is so profoundly offensive. And on top of that, the amount of money we're talking about that they absolutely will accept no responsibility for the damage to your equipment is definitely class action lawsuit worthy. So keep an eye on this space, and we'll see how we follow up with this. In the meantime, now that we know that, once I install a cooler, that's the first thing I'm going to check now and from now on. And AMD is not immune from this either, but we're not building an AMD today, so I don't want to muddy the waters with other information and the relationship of the information. Because what ends up happening, it appears viewers are very easily misunderstood. And the minute I start using analogies that aren't exactly technical representations that aren't going to get you past an electrical engineering test at a college, then they come out of the woodwork, the certain viewers that want to correct me when they completely miss the point of what I'm saying and don't even talk about it. They're doing the same thing the manufacturers are doing. They're saying, hey, look over there. Like, no, pay attention. Intel specifications exist for a purpose, and the motherboard manufacturers are ignoring them. If you have any comment outside of that specific topic, I'm not publishing it. It will not be allowed. Stay on target. If you have an experience or you have a reasoning that you believe with something other than your imagination, some evidence that there's a logical reason why motherboard manufacturers would not obey the recommended specifications as an option to their customers and hide that from their customers, I'd love to hear it. Any other discussion around this is completely off the plot. That's a whole different storyline that people want to tell. It makes them feel good, I guess, to listen to the point of the video and then the extraneous information that I'm using to help regular viewers understand. That's the point they latch onto and want to correct. It's a weird world out there. So if you notice my videos getting dumbed down even more and more so that basically only the information, the exact information and words are used with no examples, and that the point of the video is made very short so that those viewers, because there's so many of them, have nothing to grab onto, then I guess they would have nothing to say. But since they still have nothing to say on point, the moderation level is high. So for the rest of you, I hope you got the point, which I do believe most of you did, which is PL1 and PL2 are not being set according to Intel specs, and the cost of that is in your pocket. It's the cost of the degradation of the chip. It's the cost of the electricity and loss of efficiency. And then it's this misleading information that your cooler is not good enough. Which, again, if the cooler says, if it's promoted as being something that works with that chip, and you see it's got good reviews and people say, yeah, it works fine, it's going to leave you baffled, right? And it's your problem when it's really the motherboard maker's responsibility. They're the cause of the problem, and they need to be more transparent and really go out of their way to make their customers aware that this is what they're doing behind the scenes. I don't know that that's going to happen without a lawsuit. So in the meantime, you got to look out for you. I'll look out for me. Look out for your friends. Look out for your family. If you know somebody building a modern Intel system, 12th gen, 13th gen, 14th gen, or 15th gen, check it if it matters to you. Or don't. I'm just telling you, man. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. Imagine if the doctor wrote you a prescription and then the pharmacist said, oh, that's not enough, we're going to give you a little bit more. Then the consequences of that fall on who? The pharmacist, clearly. You follow the directions, you're the customer, you're the one who was harmed. The doctor did the right job, gave the pharmacist the right dosage, the right medication. In this case, the motherboard manufacturer is the pharmacist, you're the customer, and Intel would be the doctor. That's how offensive this is. It's hard to believe all the motherboard makers are doing this right now. And none of them are coming clean about it. Not even when you contact support and you give them the symptoms and they know the answer, they won't tell you that. They don't even bring it up in conversation. I can't believe it. This is what the world's come to now. All right, so I bring all that up because we have a temporary cooler on here now, just a standard laminar cooler from Intel that comes with the stock Intel 14900, 13900, 12900. It's a great cooler, it's easy to put on, and it's great for testing because I'm really going for a special look here, and that cooler really isn't adequate for the K version. It does get hotter. It'll get the job done if you never press it that hard, but if you never press it that hard, why'd you buy it, right? It's perhaps maybe something you're planning to grow into later. And this case is not a practical case. This case is for displaying. It's a showpiece. So the same with this cooler. This is not the best and most efficient or value cooler you can buy. You're buying this cooler because you want the look of it, and it cools okay. It should be fine according to the reviews I've read. It's not spectacular. It's not terrible. It's probably overpriced in my opinion because of the nonsense. But we're going to build a nonsense build because that's what home users do. Businesses on average do not do this. This is a home user enthusiast type of a build. And if you were to try to create a business where you're building stuff like this, it would be very difficult for you to make any money to sustain that business more than maybe 2 or 3 years before you'd have to close shop. And all you need to do is just look at all the previous businesses that have tried. On the other hand, if we were building a more practical, pragmatic system, it would cost less. It wouldn't have a glass panel. It would not have RGB. It would not have liquid cooling. It would cost less, and it would be much easier to stay in business because businesses buy a lot more computers than home users do. And it's not a dig on home users. It's just I want you to be aware of the world around you because it appears so many people don't have a clue. They think the way that they build computers at home is how it's done in the real world in work, and apparently they've just never gone to work, or they've been out of the workforce for some time and they just don't know how the other half lives. So if you want to get into this for a living and you want to chase after this kind of stuff, it's going to be hard to find the work. You can do it, absolutely, and you can be successful, but you're going to have to work a lot harder than I'm willing to just to find the work. Just so you know. So stuff like this, I don't normally build stuff like this except for YouTube. I don't really have many customers ever asking for stuff like this. And if they do, they're home users. Never once has a business asked me for this. And if I try to sell us a business, they'll laugh at me. They'll be like, you've got to be kidding, right? Tell me you're kidding. So that's how different the two worlds are. And I'm trying to be the bridge for the people who don't know. This is what's going on outside of the bubble you live in, if you happen to live in one. It certainly seems like a lot of people do. And it's weird to me because it's my everyday life. And I'm talking to people who you'd think would know by now, and they're completely clueless. They can't believe it. They never thought of it. So just in case the information applies, we have viewers all over the world with all different experiences for whatever reason. And this is not universal information to our viewers. To some it is, but not to all. And I'm trying to close that gap so we understand what we're watching and we understand how this varies from business. And it's your choice. Nothing's wrong with it. Nothing wrong with building a machine like this. It's just that if that's all I did, I wouldn't have a YouTube channel anymore. I would be working somewhere at a business where they don't do this in order to pay my bills, because this will not pay my bills unless I never sleep and I'm willing to work 24 hours to get paid for 4 hours of my time. Who would do that? So in any event, as I mentioned, it is possible to do this. it is possible to create your own business selling gaming PCs to the general public, but you won't do it for very long. I can almost guarantee you can be a big, successful company, and within, I would guess within about 5 years, you'll be done. It'll be all closed up. Mark my words. And if you can pass the 5-year mark, then you're a survivalist. You know what I mean? Like you're one of the few who've made it. So there are some out there, some companies that have made it, but they probably have some good funding that gets them through the tight times and can pay for a very large marketing budget to sell worldwide and not just be limited to your local area, because that's really where you're going to get stuck, is your limitation of how many people in your area will buy one, and then how often will they ever buy another one. So food to think about if you're thinking about going in business to build computers or to be a tech, where the money is, and then how you want to make it. You can do it either way. Just be prepared. Let me just say hello to everybody joining us in the chat room. We have, let's see, scroll up here. Eddie Casanova says hello. There's Andy Kane saying hello. Alan with a Y says hello. David Graham joins us along with Mortog. I also see Gary Tatum and Patrick T saying hello. There's 3D Everything and Ben Laird. Ben joining us from Scotland. I also see Sean Skinner saying hello, and Barry Klein joining us. Welcome in, guys. Richard DeFries says hello. Of course, Mark Gaines and Paul Vercher say hello. Welcome in, welcome in. Dennis Hill says hello. Doman 2000. Martin Postema. David Martinez and Charlie Purdy say hello. Lou Greenius says hello, as does Rick Ash. Rick wants to know, how come the motherboard manufacturers don't want you to know this? Because they want you to believe that if you buy their motherboard, your CPU will perform better. They're not explaining why. They don't want you to know why, because the reason why is it's at your cost. In other words, ASRock and MSI and Gigabyte and Asus, they're all saying, if you benchmark our motherboards, you'll see our boards perform better. But why? Well, because we're sending way too much voltage, ignoring Intel specifications, requiring you to have a more expensive cooler, and costing more money in electricity to run your computer. Why would they want you to know that? That doesn't sound good for them, does it? The idea that their board will perform better if you buy their board instead of their competitors, that's the part they want you to believe. How they're doing it is, look, why does a company not want you to know how a hot dog is made? When you buy a hot dog and you enjoy it, they want you to enjoy it. Ignorance is bliss. If there was a picture on the hot dog package of how they're making the hot dog, you would probably never eat one again. They don't want you to have that information, or you probably won't be buying any more hot dogs. Make sense? This is very much a very similar analogy here. They don't want you to see how the hot dog's made. Just buy more hot dogs. Don't our hot dogs taste better? They do taste better. Yeah, that's because, why? Oh, because we put crack cocaine in them. I don't know. I'm just saying, there's some secret they don't want you to know, and it ain't exactly kosher, if you know what I'm saying. All right. Some of these analogies are better than others. Rick Ash wants to know, is this overkill on the fans on the PC? There's nothing practical about this PC. When you're looking at RGB enthusiast builds, which primarily make up the vast majority of content regarding building PCs on YouTube, what you see is a bunch of ridiculous overkill that is way more money than it needs to be, has way more of everything. But what they're doing is it's like if you're watching a car enthusiast channel and somebody takes, I don't know, a turbo Mustang engine and puts it into a little tiny old car. It's stupid. Like it might be fun, but it's expensive. If you watch something like Whistling Diesel YouTube channel, it's not uncommon for their videos to cost over $100,000 in parts that they blow up, because not only do they have to source all these parts and do all the work to make it all work, then they see how far it can go before they blow the engine up, and that's one video they made. I don't have that kind of a budget, and I got better things to do, and there is no business on the planet that would run a business that way. That is a YouTube business that exists only to gain viewers. It's something like a crazy TV show that people will cause harm to themselves financially in order to earn money back. So you think about entertainment. It is a form of entertainment. It is not a form of education. This is a form of entertainment. And within it, I still try to put learning opportunities in here. The whole thing. I mean, I would never. I build this because I'm on YouTube. I don't build this for me. I don't use a computer with RGB. Not a single computer that I use every day has RGB on it, nor would it have a liquid cooler on it. I think if I have a liquid cooler on a build, it won't have any RGB. Maybe the pump lights up, but we're not doing the fans. We're not doing any of that nonsense. It's a waste of money, and it's also a lot more cable management. The parts cost more. It's one more thing that breaks or needs adjustment. It's another piece of software you have to load and update. I don't have time for that. I mean, I have a computer to get work done. This is a tool for me, not a toy. But I also know that the vast majority of YouTube viewers are not practical people. They want entertainment. They're not here necessarily to learn anything other than how cool is that. So I could take a car, for example, and I can run pinstripes across it. And I could get $10,000 worth of pinstripes on this $2,000 car, and that could earn me money on YouTube. But as a shop that does work on cars and pinstriping, no customer would ever come in and ask for that price. It would be very rare for that to happen. And if that's all I planned on doing in the shop was $10,000 pinstriping jobs, people would love seeing it, but very few people would actually come in and pay that money and have it done. So in that way, you get entertainment. You film that, you put it out, and you show it as entertainment. And I'm here to tell you, I do these kind of builds reluctantly. I don't really want to do these kind of builds. The viewer of YouTube, in order for me to remain relevant on YouTube, I have to succumb to the ignorance of the masses who don't care that make up the majority, unfortunately, of my views. If it was all members videos only, you'll see those views are a lot shorter. And in general, the members are there to learn. They're not there to watch and laugh at something meaningless and flushing money down a toilet. And I would think if I was a member and I saw that I was consistently flushing money down a toilet, I'm not sure I'd want to continue supporting that channel with my money if that's how they're spending it. Like, a little bit of it's okay, in my opinion. Like, to me, we don't want to alienate anybody. If that's your interest, is to be entertained, we'll do our best. But at the same time, if you want to learn, that's the primary reason this channel exists. But if this channel is only about learning and it's all very serious all the time, it will get far fewer viewers, and that means it's going to be very difficult to maintain any level of income that makes any more content possible. So if I have to put up a video of a silly cat or a silly dog in order to attain the viewers I need to fund the educational videos, or stop making videos, that's the dilemma I find myself in. Or just join the group, just join the crowd, and just make silly nonsense in the hopes that that will generate enough revenue that I can continue to spend 2 to 3 times more money for every video. I mean, I don't know how that works, but clearly some people are making that work. So as a content creator, I just don't want to do that. It doesn't interest me. We can visit it from time to time, because I'm not going to sit here and act like it doesn't exist the way home users act like business needs don't exist. I'm not returning that back to you. I am acknowledging there is a world outside of business. And in return, I am hoping to educate you to realize there's a world outside of this that's much bigger and much more profitable in the world of business. So I'm trying not to ignore either side. But my main focus is on practical, pragmatic information with a little bit of silliness. This is just pure silliness at this point. This is an indulgence. This is a gluttony that we're living in a time where we can afford to do this kind of nonsense. It's no different than putting hubcaps on your lawnmower. I don't know why you would do that, but look, if that's the trend and everybody's doing it, and I'm selling lawnmowers, you know I gotta make a video demonstrating that. But every video I make will not. I will not succumb to the masses in that way. I would rather just not make videos. If society has gotten that spoiled and that entitled, I no longer want to be a part of that part of society. So we're clear. I do this, but this is not the kind of video, this isn't representative of the kind of work I do. Not a single customer, well, very few customers ever order a computer like this. Like, I would have been out of business a long time ago if this is all I did and I ignored business. All right, so it's entertainment. Buster joins us and contributes 10 pounds. Thank you, Buster. Hello, Carey and Mara and everyone in the chat, he says. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland. Today, the temperature in Edinburgh is 52 degrees Fahrenheit or 11 degrees Celsius. It sounds a little chilly, but I would like that. It's going to be 108, 109 degrees this week. And it's only going to get worse until about October. Oh, man. I'll be settling in for sure. I go out at night when the sun is down, and then it's only like 95. That's a lot more tolerable. John Paul Bacon says hello. Ben Laird said, are there any CPUs that cannot be air-cooled? Not for consumers. No, every consumer CPU can be air-cooled. Yeah. Mark Leibowitz says, what about making videos of teaching cats and dogs how to build computers? Then I wouldn't have a job anymore, would I? Then I'll be waiting for the dog to give me my food in a bowl. Where's my kibble? Arnold says, do you or will you sell AMD-based PCs to companies? So, you know, I keep going on about the disconnection between home users and business. And what I fail to understand, and this is a part I can't wrap my head around, is why in the world, what's going through your mind that you think I dictate to my customers what they will buy? How does that work in your mind? How does a business work that tells a customer, I won't sell you something? When a business contacts me or a client and they explain to me what they want and how much money they have to spend, sometimes they have an option in their head. Like they're already thinking, you know, I want an AMD or I want an Intel. I want a graphics card or I don't. It depends on each customer. We're not selling Tootsie Rolls here, where everybody gets the same thing for the same price. Everybody's got different needs, values, and budgets and expectations. And we have to identify through a consultation, which is usually, it averages about an hour, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes 90 minutes. We have to cover all of that. And if what the customer wants to build is reasonable, I have no preference if they want a graphics card or they don't. If they want a liquid cooler or an air cooler. As long as they're willing to pay for it. The only objection I would have is if they want to build something that's going to be difficult to support. So if they want to build a really complex machine, and then they're going to be calling me every other day to keep it running, I will not take that job because I cannot afford to give away that support. if they want to pay me. In other words, if we write out a disclaimer that if I build this for you, you will pay me my regular hourly rate for ongoing support that this kind of a configuration will require, and you sign a piece of paper to that effect, I'll consider it, but I still may not do it because I have other customers to attend to. And if I ignore those other customers because this one customer keeps calling me back over and over and over and I don't have time for anybody else, eventually all those other customers go away. And then eventually all customers go away. So if I put all my eggs in one basket and I let this one customer monopolize my time for any amount of money, if anything happens between me and that customer, I'm out of business. I no longer have anybody else. I'm a sole employee. I can't send somebody out to do the job. On the other hand, I could write up a contract where I hire somebody specifically for that one customer if they're willing to foot the bill, and that way I can continue to service the other clients, and that my other clients aren't paying the price for me to not be available because I'm always over there. So there's a delicate balance because there's only so many hours in a day, and there's so many people that want to engage with me for buying new computers, upgrading current computers, or diagnosing and repairing computers and networks. I have to triage my time so that I'm not being monopolized by any one customer for any length of time that could cause me the loss of future business from other clients. So the person paying the money is the only one whose opinion matters. You guys watching YouTube videos with your opinions, they're interesting. But unless we're building the computer for you, or unless the customer has specifically assigned you as a spokesman on their behalf, what does that got to do with anything, what your opinion is? In other words, I wouldn't have built it that way. Well, that's fine. When you have your customers, you tell them that, you know, I'm running a business. I'm actually doing it. I'm not sitting watching somebody else do it saying, well, here's how I would have done it. Like, either do it or don't do it. But you should absolutely respect the people who are doing something. Whether or not you agree is not on the table. Like, it doesn't play any role in reality what you think unless you're involved in the transaction. Your agreement or disagreement has absolutely nothing to do. Like, if it was raining outside, would I just not be building today? Oh, the sun's too hot, I won't build today. These are factors that have nothing to do with what we're doing here today. And so, while you might feel your opinion is of some sort of importance, and to some respect they can be, they are not dictating the direction of any business. You would have to basically be an investor at some point to have any sort of influence over that business. Sometimes boycotting or cancel culture can have an effect, but most of the time it doesn't. Most of the time it's ineffective, and they make that out to be bigger than it really is. At the end of the day, customers that are paying, that's what business is about. Any business, not just what I do, but your grocery store, Walmart, whatever. And whether or not you like it doesn't matter. So it's not about me. It's just the way the world runs. And if you want it to matter, then you need to become someone of influence or power, if it's that important to you. Or start your own business to show us all how it's done, and then make videos educating others in the hopes that whatever you think is an injustice gets corrected through education. That's the only way you're going to get something done here in this world. Sitting around talking about it, everybody does that. You need to, that is all just noise. So there are people that talk about doing, and there are the people that actually do. And the people who actually do have a far more valuable opinion to me, and the people who are paying for the work have the most valuable opinion. They're the ones who keep me in business. They're the ones whose opinion matters. They're the ones whose happiness and satisfaction matters, because without them, I don't have a business. But without viewers that, I still have a business to run. Whether or not I choose to share it on YouTube is my choice, and I enjoy it. But the minute viewers attack me or and I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying if they just can't wrap their mind around the world of business, they have no concept of it, and that starts detracting from being able to produce content, then that's going to harm my business. And that means, okay, before YouTube existed, what do you think I didn't exist? What was I doing until 2008? Do you ever stop and wonder, and if I was building Intels or AMDs, do you care? What do you have in it? And how do I stay in business? How is it possible? I just want you to think it through. Where was I before YouTube? And how long have I been making YouTube videos? And how is it possible I'm still doing it? Nobody's financing this. Our members, our viewers that are, contributors to this channel are what underwrites the cost of these videos. Or I'm building a computer, which is how this all started, by the way. I'm building a computer for a client, and I just turn the camera on and show you. At no point was I ever asking anybody if it was okay with them. That was never on the table. It never has been on the table. And if you want to understand how business works, I'm happy to share what I've learned in the process. But ultimately, what you want to do is you want to help guide your customer to what will be a satisfactory transaction. So if a customer is going in a direction that I feel, they're spending way too much for what they need, I'm going to tell them, you don't need to spend this much for the business that you run. And I've had customers do that. They're like, this seems a little inexpensive. Money's not a problem for us. Is there something better you could sell us? And this is a conversation that has taken place a half dozen times, at least, just in the last 10 years. It doesn't happen that often, but I'm like, look, I will sell you a more expensive system. I will. But I'm telling you, you'll see no benefit from it. You won't get any more life out of it. Your employees won't be any more productive. If I sold you anything less than what I'm recommending, that's going to be, affecting productivity and length of usage that you can expect to get out of that computer before you need to replace it. If I say you something really high end, it's more than you need, and it won't last any longer, and your employees won't be any more productive. It's only going to cost you more money. So based on what you told me you needed, these are the parts I'm recommending. And if you have any concerns about that, or you want to override that, you're the customer. Doesn't matter to me. Whether or not I build an AMD system or an Intel system, a system with 16 gigs of RAM or 32 gigs of RAM or a 1 terabyte NVMe or an 8 terabyte, it's all the same work. It's the same amount of time. It's the same amount of work. The only one who's paying for that is the customer. And I want the customer to be happy. If I think my customer isn't going to be happy, and they insist this is what they want me to do, and they're trying to force my hand to make them unhappy, then I'll say, I don't think I'm the right person for the job, because I would rather not do the work than do the work and have a customer upset with me that I knew before we got started was going to be a problem. Not all customers are good customers. And so for the good customers, that's a different story. But just for some customer that thinks they're going to dictate to me a situation that's going to end up making me look bad because they have a poor selection of parts, I'll probably walk away from that, because I don't want to harm my reputation because they won't listen. And for that matter, why are they even contacting me? If they know so much, they can obviously do it themselves. The whole benefit of why you would hire me is that you need some help and guidance in making that decision. So to ignore my help and guidance is ignoring the whole purpose of what I do. Therefore, you don't need me. But a lot of people in business, they want to make a sale, and they don't care how they get the money. And they'll oversell and oversell. And that's why I'm not rich. I refuse to do that. I think if I did do that, I'd be a lot better off financially. I just wouldn't be able to sleep at night. I blame my mother. She instilled a very strong moral sense in me to do unto others as you would have done to you. That karma will come around and you will pay the price for it. Well, you might reap the rewards now. You're going to pay a price, a big, heavy price with fines and penalties. It's just the way the world goes around. So if you want your instant gratification, go get it. Suffer your consequences later. Or keep it calm and steady, always do the right thing. And, things are less chaotic and less likely to turn sour on you if you always follow that. And I have found that those words are true for me. And it's sort of like, if you tell a lie, you better remember it for the rest of your life. It's a lot easier to remember the truth. So lies might be easy to remember for the first few weeks. But then when somebody calls you on it months or years later, you got to remember what you said. It'll always come back, man. Your choice, just as this is my choice. Lawrence Pierre joins us and says hello.
Your supporters, check your email.
Check.
My goodness.
Oh, all right, we'll check email. Our good friend Charlie Purdy sends an Amazon gift card, a very generous Amazon gift card. He said, I have missed a few live streams. I've been away on business. This is for the channel and the community. It's folks like Charlie Purdy, it's friends like Buster and Mark Gaines, and many more, who I can't possibly name everybody, that through their combined generosity and support, we can do stuff like this. There's no customer for this. Nobody, when this is done here, it's going to sit on a shelf here in the studio. I won't use it. Mara won't use it. We already have much more powerful machines that aren't quite so large and just more practical for what we need to do to run our business. So there's nothing wrong with it. It's just very impractical. It's not for us. However, not that Mara wouldn't like this, but what she's got is better. When I mean better, I mean it's a higher end chip with a higher end cooler in a higher end case that does the work she needs to do better than this one will do it. But she definitely prefers the aesthetics, the way this looks. But at the end of the day, how this looks doesn't have any impact to anybody outside of this house. You can't see it. So what I could do, and this is crazy, but if a customer, a real live customer with money in their pocket, money in their hand says, Carey, I need an Intel board, I need it today, what do you have available that you can get to me, let's say tomorrow? I can make more money from this system selling those parts than selling it all together. Right now in the industry, I'm telling you, I could sell each one of these components and generate at least 30% more revenue out of this than selling it built. And that means my labor is worth zero. So if a client were to call me and say, look, we need a modern Intel processor that's really adequate or performs really, really well without going to the Ultra 9, do you have anything? But we don't want RGB and we don't want liquid cooling. I could rip that board out, put it into a proper business case, throw proper cooling on it without any RGB, whether or not liquid cooling or a big cooling fan, whatever. And it would also save the customer money, which means it would leave me back with an empty case and power supply for which I could do another entertainment video. The odds of somebody calling me and saying, hey, I want to buy this when it's all done with all the glass and RGB for what this is going to cost, it happens, but it's maybe 1 out of every 30 computers I sell will be something like this. So that's the dilemma I face, right? So I build it for the channel, I build it for you guys. And if what I get back is a sense of no appreciation, well, then I didn't need to spend my time and money on this when the people I built it for say, we don't like it. All right, well, we won't do that anymore. This video is for you. It's for all of you. And how you respond to it, right? The number of views I get, that tells me what you guys want to see. And these kind of videos are very expensive. Just so you know, this cooler was $350 plus sales tax just for this. That chip is close to what? $400? The case, what is this, a $200 case? That power supply, $160 power supply. The NVMe drive. Yeah. And to do what? So I can make a video. Think about it. Who's paying when you watch all these other tech channels, who's paying for that? Because a lot of them are nothing more than commercials where the manufacturers of the parts are dictating to the content creator what to say and what not to say. We don't do that here. There's very few YouTube channels that can find a financial means to make the videos they want to make and to say what they want to say without any corporate overlord looking down upon them, controlling them. And they don't disclose that to you as a viewer. Very rarely. They don't have to. And even if they do have to, there's no enforcement. So you guys are constantly, well, all of us, not just you, we're constantly being manipulated. And it's the information you're not being told. That's the part that should be what you're asking yourself. So how do these people afford to make these videos? How do they afford to give away computers to their viewers? Who's footing the bill? The shipping alone on this, just in the United States, will be around $200. So think about it. How does it make sense? How does it financially come together? What are you not being told? And if they're not disclosing how that video is getting paid for, you're being lied to. They're omitting information they don't want you to know. And that's how the business of YouTube videos works. Right now in 2025, at least when it comes to computers and a lot of tech gadgets. So I'll give you an example. I personally like my Corsair K55 keyboard. You can go back a couple of years and you'll see I've been recommending it. Been recommending it a long time. But I don't want to just sit here and make commercials for Corsair. They've never paid me or sent me anything for free, and we've never worked together in any way, shape, or form. And I'm okay with that. It doesn't mean I'm not going to like their product, or I am going to like their product. Either way, I like it because I like it. And it just so happens the other day, I got an email from this website, slickdeals.net, that makes me aware of sales. And I saw that Corsair was selling the K55 directly, refurbished. But they have a different name for refurbished. They call it revived. It's a revived keyboard. But here's the deal. This keyboard, when I was recommending it, was like $100 because I didn't want to spend more than $100 on a keyboard. And then I was able to pick them up refurbished on Amazon for like $40 to $60. I thought, wow, I'm going to buy like 3 of them today. And it's probably been over 2 years since I've talked about this keyboard. Today, you can buy that same keyboard that I'm recommending directly from the manufacturer, revived, $20. $20. I mean, are you kidding me? This thing has macro keys along the left side. It's got RGB. It's a membrane style keyboard. I really like the way it feels. It feels like someone mixed a membrane keyboard with a mechanical keyboard. It's a weird hybrid feel, but I like it. You've got your multimedia controls over around here, and there's a little bit about the idea that they really care about the environment. Look at all the trees we're saving and the plastic we're keeping out of the ocean. By taking these units, they may have some minor scratches or scuffs, but are mostly like new, and selling them for 1/3 of their regular price. So here, $20. I'm not getting paid to tell this to you. Nobody's telling me what I'm allowed to say or not say. This is how I feel about this. I think that's a great deal. And I'm not buying the nonsense that they care about the environment. They want to sell you product. I get it. And they don't want to throw away bad product that could be resold, but may not be perfect. So then how do you market that and manipulate the public into thinking you're doing it for them? We're doing this for the good of the environment. No, they're not. They're doing it to sell you a keyboard that they otherwise would not meet their requirements to repackage as new again, or legally cannot repackage it as new regardless. $20, 90-day warranty, and non-essential accessories are not included. So maybe like a keycap puller or something the new one comes with that the revived one doesn't. Who cares, right? If you're that demanding, go buy a new one. Okay, that's a deal all day long. That is a wired keyboard. It's not wireless. And the macros are just a great time saver if you're having to enter the same things over and over again, or in gaming. You'll really appreciate the ability of having those macro keys. As you can imagine, there isn't going to be much of a budget for Corsair to pay content creators to make an advertisement for a $20 part. There might be, but it ain't going to be much. The fact I show it to you is because I choose to, because I think that's a good deal and I want you to know about it. I won't make any money if you buy it or you don't buy it. I'm trying to guide you to what I think is a good deal, and if that seems appealing to you, get it while you can, because it's not a permanent price. That's it. That's my motivation, that you're going to come back and say thank you. That's all. That's all I get. So if anybody comes back with a how dare you, or something critical, when all I was trying to do was help, then I guess I stop helping. Right? I don't know. It's difficult sometimes when we make videos to the public. With the members, and in fact with most viewers, it's really not a problem, but some people just don't get it. And it can be very disparaging to sit here and with a pure intention and full transparency and still have somebody make false accusations based on absolutely no evidence, and try to get others swayed onto their side, and then use my stage to talk to my audience in an attempt to riot against me. Who are these people, and how are they so delusional to think that they have that sort of influence, even if I would let them step on my stage, which I won't. Those people get removed from the channel. They don't belong here. They're troublemakers. They're looking for attention, and we're not going to give it to them. We're simply ban them from the channel forever. They're just gone. And they can keep coming back with false accounts all day if that's all they got better to do. It's one click for me to remove them. It's several clicks for them to keep recreating accounts. Until such a time that YouTube starts enforcing account verifications that people are real and not bots, I am trying to shield you guys from having to deal with that noise. And the reality is, the bigger a YouTube channel is, the bigger the shield needs to be. Or many YouTube channels just ignore it. They just let the comment section become just a place of noise, and it's not very welcoming for most people to see that. It just turns people, regular folks that, first time visit to the channel, and they just see chaos in the comments, they just leave and never come back again. It's a very unwelcoming experience. So one way or another, content creators need to make their choice which one they want. And for me, I'd rather have quality over quantity when it comes to viewers, or at least people that are criticizing without contributing. So that part of it is one of the challenges that does not exist in the real world. When I do build computers for customers and that customer has a complaint, it's valid. No matter what, it's valid. The only time a customer has a complaint is if I fail to meet the expectations that I set. So a customer says, I want this kind of a computer that can do this, that, or the other, and I want it by Wednesday, and this is how much money, and I agree to that. And the only way that customer will be upset is if I don't meet my end of that agreement. Well, it's not going to be ready on time. I can't get those parts. It's going to cost more. Yeah, your customer has every right that you basically misled them. So that would be in this example, it would be my fault. I'd have myself to blame, and the customer has every right. But a viewer clicking on a free video that they spent nothing on, that thinks they're entitled to a certain level of whatever their values are, I don't know who they are. A lot of times they won't even, they're so cowardly, they won't even use their real name, but yet they act like they're brave when they want to criticize. It's a weird thing to act brave while being a coward. Pick one. But thankfully, we do have a great community here overall. And sometimes it just, as it grows, sometimes we attract some of the bad apples. And as we identify them, we remove them. That way the community can grow strong and not be splintered by factions trying to basically pilfer, what they see as a value, which is you guys, right? So at any event, getting back to the build, I guess the first thing we're going to need to do here is remove the cooler that we've got on here and then clean the thermal compound so that we can apply this cooler. And hopefully this won't be too difficult. I've never installed a Tryx cooler before. I'm not familiar with the installation process, and I'm hoping it'll go smoothly today, but you never know. I do this, again, honestly, earnestly, with full transparency, no edits. Everything is live. So if there's a misunderstanding I have, or you're watching me learn on real time, that's what this is. If you want to go watch a rehearsed scripted commercial, there's plenty of other YouTube content for that. You won't find that here. I just want to avoid any misunderstandings with viewers who get upset when they're not watching commercials. It's so, you ever see Demolition Man? And they're singing along on the radio to commercial jingles from 100 years before. And you go, God, people couldn't possibly be that dumb. Kind of starting to happen. But you guys, you're all good. You're not part of that. You know, I'm not talking about you. The people I'm talking about knew who I'm talking about. Mara says she's added the links to the K55 keyboard revived and new. So you can see the price difference, and also if you want something that is brand new with all the accessories without any potential scuffs on it, and you're willing to pay for that. Luke Greenia said, I've been very impressed with the Asus BT10 router so far. It's put the Netgear Nighthawk to shame. His godson ran an all-night gaming party with rock-solid performance. Just looking to catch up in the chat here. Thing looks good. Just looking to see if I missed any super chats or questions that I can address. Everything looks good. All right. So first things first, I'm going to remove this cooler. This does require a screwdriver. A lot of the less expensive, the plastic Intel stock coolers, they just click in, and that's still true today. But on these really nice exclusive metal coolers that Intel includes on the 12900, 13900, 14900 CPUs, they're unlike any other Intel cooler that I've ever seen, and they secure down with screws instead of just plastic clips, which I like. Because the plastic clips, they could get a little funky if you're taking a CPU off and on. The plastic may start to basically have a memory, and sometimes it won't fit back into the motherboard hole after it's been expanded, the end of the plastic, and you have to manually kind of squeeze it by hand to get it to fit back down into the mounting hole in the motherboard. And with screws, that's never an issue. They just screw in, screw out, screw in, screw out. There's nothing special or any modifications you ever have to make. So it's a far more secure mounting method. And to come from a stock cooler, that's really impressive. That's normally something you only get from a third-party cooler. Also, if you were shipping this cooler's not popping off during shipping. The ones that clip in, they're really easy to install, but if they're handled roughly in shipping, they just pop off. That's not uncommon. And when they pop off, they can damage all the components on the board. If the package continues to be jostled roughly, then it can knock RAM out of its sockets. It can smash up a video card. It's nasty. So with screws in, it would have to be dropped from a great distance for that to ever come off. Like two stories tall, maybe that would come off. And even then, probably not. You'd have other problems, but that won't be one of them. Let me grab a paper towel and wipe some of this thermal compound off before it gets everywhere. And this stuff smears and gets all over everything. I'm going to start with just wiping down our CPU. And that's just to really get the bulk of the thermal compound off. I will use some isopropyl alcohol to clean that internal heat spreader to get it really clean. And then I'm just going to clean the thermal compound off of this heat sink, which looks like we used based on how it's spread out, it looks like we used the pre-applied thermal compound as Intel sells it out, as it comes out of the box with the CPU. Because normally you see this ring, this round ring, normally that would be a square ring because the processor is square and not round. But the thermal compound, in the way that they apply it at the factory, it comes out round. And so when I'm cleaning it, I can kind of tell if that's my thermal compound or theirs. Not that it matters, it's coming off either way. It's just an observation to go, huh, that's interesting. I'm sure if I go back and look at the assembly of this motherboard, I used a brand new cooler with stock thermal compound on it. And I could be wrong, but that's certainly an unusual circular pattern. Like I say, the cooler's got a round plate, but your CPU is rectangular. I'm thinking of the pizza, a round item sold in a square box that's cut into triangles. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this, I'm not going to clean this with isopropyl alcohol until it's ready to be reused. So what I'll do is I'm going to put this in the trash. This will go on a shelf for a future build. It's great to use for both testing, as we've used it, also as a permanent cooler, which I've also done some builds where that is the cooler that stays in. Especially an Intel CPU that is like an i5 or an i7. That cooler is overkill for those processors because that cooler came with an i9. So if that cooler can keep an i9 cool, it can definitely keep an i7 and an i5 cool. Just so you know. So if we get like a 14600K that doesn't come with a cooler, I don't have to buy a $60 cooler. I can just use that one. And with the glass, get the RGB and see that cooler. It's nice to look at. Nobody would really think you cut corners with your cooler. Now, let's go ahead and just clean that CPU off with isopropyl rubbing alcohol here. We want the highest alcohol content. That way we're not leaving other components that make up, lower alcohol content can leave behind a film, or it can leave even behind certain impurities that may be in when we're using a pure alcohol, or as close as we can get to it. It's going to evaporate and be a great dissolver of, trying to think what the word is, like a varnish. Is it a varnish? It can dissolve a lot of impurities, from oils that came from your fingers and touching it, to material left behind in the thermal compound we removed. You just can't see it with the naked eye. And you can see how dirty this Q-tip came off, even though by wiping that CPU clean with a towel, with a paper towel, it looks fantastic. And yet this was still on there. Now this isn't going to make a big difference in cooling, by the way. I could have just left this on the CPU. It might cool 1 to 3 degrees Celsius less efficiently. But if we're going to do it, let's just do it right. And normally I would recommend repeating this process until the Q-tip comes off mostly clean. I don't think you'll ever get it 100% clean. There's always, at some point, some material that the rubbing alcohol can pull right off the surface of the heat spreader. And so it doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but we want to get it to a point where any sort of difference beyond this would be measured in hundredths of degrees, like 1/100th of 1 degree Celsius, by not getting it exactly perfect. Like, it's not worth it for the return, how much effort and material you'd have to use only to turn around and cover it back up with thermal compound again. Just doesn't seem like it's making much sense to go to that level. It's not like you're going to seal it up and never open it ever again for the history of mankind. So for that reason, we do it to where it's so close that any further work and effort and expense will not return back to us that extra work and money, right? We're just not going to get it back. So at that point, we're good enough. We're, you know, it makes sense, basically. Beyond that, it doesn't make any sense. All right. Cooler's put away. Let me clear some space on the desk to work here. I've got the little dragon figurine. We'll put that over here, because I don't want to break that. These are just empty boxes and extra cables. These really should go in the motherboard box, so let me move this over here. And I just put all the documentation, any extra screws, any extra cables. I keep everything together in the motherboard box. These I don't necessarily need to keep, but if they fit in the box, I'd like to be able to offer them to whoever buys the computer, even though it's probably just going in the recycle bin either way. And then this I will put, I guess I'll just put it right here for now. I'll move this aside and move this aside. Keyboard and mouse we won't need for a few minutes, so I'll set that down here. One of the difficulties I have is the limited size of the workbench. Normally, in a proper tech room, we would have benches all along the walls. The benches would be about, I guess they'd be about 32 to 36 inches wide. These benches are only about 24 to 26 inches. So I don't have as much room that way. And the benches are usually about 6 to 8 feet long. And this one I think is 5 feet. So on the other hand, I wouldn't be able to cover all that with a camera anyway, or I'd be this big. So we make some sacrifices to do videos, but this would not be a proper lab setup if you were doing this for a living, not making videos. This side would be against the wall. There'd be no room for a camera here. The monitor would be hanging off a wall. And so the way that I show you things is meant as being instructional, and it's not practical. Making videos while you're doing the work slows down the work. And it also means sometimes you got to work backwards, where I have to turn things so the camera can see. Sometimes I would work with the case facing down, and I don't for the camera, unless I have to, in order for you guys to see. These are all things you do not need to worry about when you're actually doing the work in real life for a real customer in a real repair shop. So I want you to understand what you're watching here makes sense, because if you were in a real repair shop, it would be very, very difficult to show everything I'm doing, or to even have the lighting that we would need for you to see. It's possible, but man, that's a whole setup I'm not prepared for. I would almost certainly need to have a camera operator at all times, and that adds to the expense of what it costs to make these videos. We get back to that again. All right, let's get this opened up, and for the very first time I get to install this, and I had been really looking forward to seeing what this is like, just on an emotional state. Like I said, it's, if I wanted a better cooler, I could have spent probably the same or less and gotten a better cooler when it comes to cooling. But I definitely couldn't find a better looking cooler. This is the best looking cooler I've ever seen. Ooh, we got some damaged corner right there. All right, we got some tape right here. It's an interesting unboxing here. unfolding imagination in the arrow. Whoever delivered this dropped it right on the box. So that arrow right here, I don't know how well you can tell, it's all smashed in. All right. And that's right where the radiator is. I hope it's okay. I'm long past my return period on Amazon. Inside the box, you'll see we've got the radiator up top, and then the big screen, this giant screen that I believe comes off. Yeah, so we can keep that off for right now. And this is a screen here. This is all one screen that bends. And if you play a proper video on here, and they've got some samples in the software that you load for this, if you look at it from the corner, or if you're standing a ways away and this is playing one of those files, it'll look like whatever it is coming out of the screen. It's a very cool visual effect. 3D-like effect that doesn't require any glasses, only perspective. So if you look at it from this side or you look at it from this side, you go, what's the big deal? But when you stand in the right place and you look at it where the two screens meet, and you are playing a video that is designed for that perspective, it has this really weird effect that looks like it's coming out. So I'm looking forward to seeing that in person, see if how strong that effect is. I've got a pretty good idea from watching other videos, enough so that I bought one. Then this is our block, and it's a big ugly one at that. It's tall, it's got this additional piece, it's got this fan here. This fan is not cooling the block. The fan is there to cool around your CPU. You have voltage regulator modules, VRMs. And those VRMs that are feeding voltage into your CPU, you know, your CPU gets hot because it's pulling in more power. And those voltage regulator modules are what's delivering the power, so they get hot too. You'll often have heat sinks around two sides of the CPU. And that's what this fan is for. It's for blowing air down onto those VRMs. I don't know anybody who needs that, but if you're overclocking, it certainly doesn't hurt to have it regardless. And it looks like there's a pad here that perhaps makes the connection to the screen, although I do see some wires, so I'm not quite sure what that's for right there. Now the radiator looks like fans are already pre-installed. That should make installation nice and easy. So if we pull the radiator out, oh, we've got some extra added cardboard cushion there. So I'm not sure which side of this got the hit on the corner of the box, but having this padding certainly can, I'm sure that's why it's there, is so for situations of shipping that it gets dropped on a corner, that it's absorbed by the cardboard and not by the radiator. So that's good. I mean, I'm happy with the way they package this. It makes sense. You can tell the fans are RGB because there's that white transparent color. If the fans are a solid color, like a black or a solid white versus a transparent white, then you know they're not RGB fans. RGB fans have a very distinct look to them, just so you know what to expect when you're working on a customer's computer. If they've got a fan that looks like that, that's not lighting up, they didn't hook it up properly or something's damaged. You can see how quickly I start running out of room here on the desk. Now we should have some mounting kit in here somewhere. Let me just set this down there for now. What do we have here? User manual. Yeah, that looks pretty straightforward. Very good. And this box here that contained our block, I don't think there's anything else in here. It's just folded over and thick so that, again, it can absorb impacts without affecting what it's protecting. And finally, that leaves us with, what an unusual way. They got some origami going on here. That's all one piece of cardboard. And they've folded it in such a way that they've created a box in the middle. And this box in the middle should contain, I hope, all the mounting hardware for Intel and AMD CPUs. Oh, there's a fan controller. Lovely. Lucky me. And yeah, there's all of our back plates and mounting for Intel and AMD CPUs. And it looks like there's some kind of a piece of paper in here, which may be easier for me to just push out this way. I'm not sure. The text is too small for me to read, and I don't think it's anything important. And that's all there is. So everything looks pretty standard. I don't see anything here that concerns me. If you've ever installed a liquid cooler before, it doesn't look like they've reinvented the process. That's a good thing, in my opinion. I'm trying to close this box back up. I'm not quite sure how this went back together. Something like that, maybe. I don't know. Very strange. Close enough. Close that up. I just want this off the desk. It takes, this empty box is taking up a lot of room. And we'll just set that over here for right now. Okay. Now I have a little more room to work. And in this bag, let's take a look at what we've got for mounting options. You won't use everything in this bag. Some of it's for Intel chips, some of it's for certain Intel chips, some of it's for AMD chips, and so it's kind of a one-size-fits-all. Giving us a tube of thermal paste here, which I hope is good. We'll see. We've got our rear back plate. Did that cooler? Yeah, so the Intel cooler that I removed, it comes with a plastic back plate. I need to keep this together with the cooler because the cooler won't install without that. So let me just stop what I'm doing right now. Otherwise, I will end up being very confused later when I can't find it. And what I usually do is I'll just, since the cooler has screws on it, just turn each of the screws a couple turns. Not tight. I just don't want the back plate to come loose and fall off as it gets moved around in different places for inventory when I'm looking for parts. When I pick up that cooler, I want everything but the thermal paste so I can install it. So what do we have here? Any of these bags labeled? Nothing's labeled. Great. We have mounting screws, which I'm guessing are to mount the radiator to the case. We will need the back plate. That's an Intel back plate. These these are usually reserved for AMD, but I don't know yet. These are thumb screws. We definitely need those. That secures the block on top of the back plate. I've got other thumb screws. Why do I have two sets of thumb screws? And then we've got standoffs. I don't see anything for AMD in here. So I guess I need to go to the documentation. It does appear these are for AMD, these two brackets. I've seen these used on Intel sometimes with some coolers. Let me get my glasses out so I can read the package contents. And what it's telling us is they have included two AMD adapter brackets, and they look in the photo on the diagram like these. So we don't need those. They have included a fan cable. Yes, it's, well, that's, yeah, I suppose that's what that is. They've included thermal grease, that's the tube. They've included the fans. It says we've got four standoffs, not standoffs, four thumb screws for AMD and AM4 and AM5. Which one's which? Nothing's labeled. It says the AM4 thumb screw caps can be used on Intel socket 1700. This is an Intel socket 1861, but it meets all the same specs as the 1700. So if you're building one of the new Intel Ultra series systems, you would follow your cooler's install for socket 1700. All the parts are compatible and installation is the same. The question is, how do you tell these apart? These thumb screws have like a belt or a line around them. And this is for AM5 AMD or Intel sockets 115X or 1200. So Intel sockets 115X would be like 9th generation, 10th generation, 11th generation. No, wait a minute. Socket 1200 for Intel was introduced, I think, on 10th and 11th generation chips only. And then socket 1700 is 12th, 13th, and 14th. And then 1861 are the new chips. Did you get all that? There'll be a test later. Anyway, we don't need these. These are the bigger thumb screws, and they have like a band, like a recessed band around the. These, on the other hand, are just ridged with no line through them. And I guess that's how you tell them apart. So at least they're not exactly identical. So for our build, we need those, we need this, we need this. What do we have here? Standoffs, we probably need these. These are going to be used on only Intel sockets, all of them. 115X, 1200, 1700, 1860, these are all the same, but you won't use these on an AMD. And then we've got radiator screws. That's just what I thought these were, and that's for securing the radiator to your case. They also mentioned that there's an ARGB control box. That's this, which includes an ARGB cable, a motherboard sync cable, and a USB cable. All that for RGB, by the way. So if you got the non-RGB version of this, you wouldn't have all that extra cabling. And yeah, you're paying extra for all that stuff too. So now, how do we mount this? I guess we're going to pop this lid off of here. Come on. Trying to remember how I worked on this last time, and I've never installed this cooler before, so everything is pretty much like a first-time experience for me here. The good news is, after you've been doing this for a while, you start to see where it's all kind of the same, and there's minor differences. We just don't want to damage anything by putting too much force on something. But this looks like it just completely unclips. And again, if you're working on the same equipment over and over, like in a business, this becomes routine because you keep doing the same thing over and over. So long as we keep working on different hardware here on the channel, and it's a one-time we use this case, and we've never used it before, and we'll never use it again, it's always interesting to me as the builder to kind of see how they're doing things different, but yet at the same time where it's also similar. Now, because this has sat a while, it's got a little dust on it here. That was a good time to just use a microfiber cloth and clean that up. It's just going to get dusty again, but I figure, well, I'm in here and there's nothing in the way. What better time? Now, here's the other thing that I'm now noticing when I look up here, is it looks like this top tray comes off, making our installation of our radiator a lot easier. So let's take it off. Again, I might have done this originally when we built this, but I have no memory. I've worked on way too many other things since then. So I have to sort of re-familiarize myself with the case design. But that looks like it just comes out. Yeah, that's great. So this is the part that sticks up. What you need to keep in mind, and I think what a lot of viewers don't seem to understand, is whether or not these fans are pushing air through the radiator or pulling air through the radiator is not our concern. Well, people will talk about what's efficient. You would not buy a radiator like this if you wanted efficiency. All right, you'd just be buying the wrong part. So the way the manufacturer, and by the way, if you read the documentation for anything that comes with an RGB fan, the installation of the fan will always be the input side that you see. If we change the orientation of the fans and we flip them around to push air through, we can't see the RGB anymore. If we put the fans at the top of the case and then cover it with a lid, we won't see the RGB. This is not about the most efficient means of pushing or pulling air through the radiator. This is about the most visual impact and what you've paid extra for. So why would you pay extra for RGB just to turn around and hide it so you can't see it? That's what a lot of viewers miss. So when you get hung up on whether or not the hoses should go up or down or vertically, you're missing the plot entirely. This is not about efficient cooling. This is about adequate cooling that's going to work and look stunning, and you're going to pay a higher price for that. You can buy a much more efficient cooler for less money. But if you want to buy something that's really, really attractive, you're going to pay extra for it. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't perform as well. It's not why you're buying it. You're buying it for the look. Now, if it looked great, but it just didn't keep the chip cool, then that would be pointless. So this does what it needs to do to keep your chip cool. But if you were looking to overclock and set world records or to overvolt your chip, you would not want this cooler, because then you'd want something that could perform better, but look worse. The idea behind this whole build is about aesthetics. And you can have aesthetics and performance, but you're limiting on one or the other. We could go whole hog into performance, but it won't look as good. Or we can go whole hog into the looks, but it won't perform as well. And it will cost more. Either way, when you want to go extreme on aesthetics or extreme on performance. You will generally sacrifice one for the other should you choose one of those. If you're a business, it's not an option. We don't care about the aesthetics and we don't care about overclocking. What we want is what is considered normal, and we want to be able to buy, 200 of them at a time, not just one. Now, since this goes in this way, I'm just reminding myself here, that means the radiator, in order for us to see these fans need to point down. Okay, so we know that's the bottom of the radiator. And I'm going to be putting the radiator in at the top because I don't have any room to put it anywhere else. I want the hoses, visually, I want the hoses to come out on the right. And most likely, any liquid cooler, the hoses will most likely go towards your RAM on an Intel build. So the RAM should be to the right when we install this, and the hoses will be on the right side. When I see builds where people put the radiator in where the hoses come out towards the back, a lot of times they do that because they don't want the hoses covering up the RGB that's here, but instead they're blocking this fan. It works, you know what I mean? But I cringe. To me, that's cringy. But that's their choice. They're not breaking any rules. I fail to see the logic in it. Like you're already sacrificing some of your ultimate performance for the look. And now you're going to sacrifice even more performance because you don't want the hoses on the right. That's your choice, and it will work. I don't like that look. There may be an exception here or there of a special case design where I might run the hoses on the left towards this rear fan. So I would say, never say never. But the default setting, the first thing I'm going to try anytime I put a liquid cooler in is for those hoses to go towards the RAM. And I don't care if the radiator's going in up here, down here, up there. The hoses on the water block go out towards the RAM, this direction. And if you look at your documentation and pay close attention to the marketing, like if we look at this cooler install, if we go to Amazon, did any of you notice where the hoses were on this radiator? I'm just curious, did you even think to look at the position of the hoses? Because what a lot of people will do is criticize the position of the hoses that matches exactly what the manufacturer documentation says to do, but because some content creator said it was wrong, they think you got it wrong, and they're completely unaware of the manufacturer's supported installation and recommended installation instructions. So let's go take a look over at Amazon, and let's go to my window capture. And usually they'll have a picture of this installed in a computer. Now, notice that on this picture, they say this is waterfall mode. They have intentionally moved the hoses so they come out the bottom. But that means the 3D effect will be pretty much lost on you. It's really, in order for you to see the 3D effect, you've got to be able to see this corner. And apparently they're saying there is some 3D effect here, but I wasn't expecting to see that image, if I'm honest. Do they have any other marketing photos of this installed? That would be more typical of an install, but the picture is so dark, I can't even see the RAM. And it looks like they've got the hoses, well, you know what? Here's my question now. Do the hoses come out on the right side behind the screen? Well, I guess either way, they're coming out behind the screen, aren't they? The hoses are definitely coming out on the right here, straight down across the top of the video card. But in none of these photos are the hoses coming out to the left. There's a little bit more detail regarding the Intel versus AMD installation, and there's some overlap for the same parts that are used on both. And then a picture of everything included, at least with regards to the mounting. So that's interesting. I expected to see more examples. And you know, when they have the radiator out of the case, I guess they can film it from any angle they want that the marketing company thinks is most effective. So I'm going to just stick to my guns here. I imagine putting in the cooler this way so that we have the other part of the screen by the RAM, the hoses come out by the RAM, and then this part, of course, facing the front of the case, or the side of the glass case. And with our glass, this particular glass case having a glass front, that means we can see this whole thing if we look at the case straight on. So this is an ideal case for this cooler. All right, let's get back over to camera 1. We jump over to the chat room. Let's see. Chris Johnson says hello. Peter VZ joins us and says hello. Bernie Clement joins us and says hello. Welcome in, guys. Paul O'Brien says hello. Ghetto Fortnite says hello. Good to see everybody. I see a lot of conversation going on with you guys in the chat, which is fantastic. So since you're not talking to me, I'll get back to work. So again, where I'm at with this, when I install, there's two things to consider. Which way are those hoses going to go on the block, and which way are the hoses coming out at the top of the radiator? So we don't have to worry about the block right now. My main concern right now is just getting the radiator installed. And with this piece being removable, like it is, that's going to make it so much easier for us to mount it to the plate. And then we can determine much easier, without having to work through the case, right here on the bench, what best position to put the radiator in. This looks like the radiator can go... Yeah, it's only going to fit in one way, but there's 5 positions. Well, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 6 positions, but it's only going to line up with 2 of them, depending on how wide your radiator is. And if we know that this is going in not like this and not like this, we have to get our orientation right. So I just double check. That's how it's going to go back in. This is the top. This is the bottom. This is the back. This is the front. Right? So This is going to attach to the bottom with the hoses going out towards the front. And then we align the holes on the radiator with these slots that can accommodate numerous width and lengths of radiators. And it's only going to align with 2 of them. Specific 2, not just any 2. And the water block is a little bit in our way. The hoses are quite inflexible, so that's normal. That's a normal challenge that even is more difficult if this piece did not come off. So I appreciate when Leon Lee and other case manufacturers, Corsair and ZXT, offer cases where you can take this off. It just simplifies this. It certainly makes it more educational for a video to show how to, but more so as a builder, it's just less challenging to get it installed. Now, each side of the radiator can hold 3 fans, and all 3 fans have 4 screws. That's a total of 12 screws on both sides. We're using all 12 screws on the side that has the fans, 4 screws per fan. Because you can optionally add fans to the other side, there are an additional 12 screw holes. Therefore, there's an additional 12 screws. One might argue you only need 2 at each side to hold this in. But then what are you really doing other than being lazy? You've got the screws. There's no such thing as over-securing it. I recommend you use all 12 screws. And we start by just doing opposite corners. So we find a corner of this. Once again, I have to align which slots this is going to align with. It appears to be right there. And I do not want to tighten these. I just want to get them started. Keep them loose. And go to the opposite corner. And that should hold our alignment for the other 10 screws. See how I'm having to adjust it to get it to align? Once the screw goes into the opposite corner, whoops, I over-tightened that one. Let's just back it out just a tad bit. Now you see, with just those 2 screws installed, I can slide this piece forward and backward. And I'm not exactly sure how far forward or how far backward, other than I want to make sure that I'm not exceeding going further. I don't want the radiator sticking out. It's got to be behind the bracket, the front and the rear, and the side to the side. So the side to side fixes itself. But what this tells me is, since I don't know until this is put back into the case how to align it forward or back, I will not tighten any of these screws. But this is, 12 screws. Let's get them all started, and then all we have left to do is get it positioned and then tighten them down. And that's just working smarter and not harder. That one may be a little bit tight. So with that now secured, this makes it a lot easier for me to install by coming in from the top, bringing this down. You see how it can slide forward and backward. One of the concerns I have right now is you see how these, the power lines for the fans, they're coming out towards the front. I really want those coming out towards the back. The problem that I'm going to encounter with that is I would have to turn the radiator the other way, and then my hoses are going to come out on this side, and I don't want my hoses there. So that means I have to remove all these fans, rotate them 180 degrees, and put them back again. I'm not quite sure why Tryx did that. But let's do a test fit right now, because I can still adjust the radiator and leave it attached to the bracket and then take it back out and do the fans on the other side without undoing what we've already accomplished. So let's just finish this thought here. So I'm going to bring this down, and it slots in right here. There's a little tab and slot for the bracket to fit into the case. Okay, and then I can see how this moves forward in a way which isn't really making much difference. And then I'm just visualizing that this would go on right there. So you can see how that might cover up some RGB and why some people may choose to, look, we got RGB all over this thing. There's no position that you can put this radiator in where the hoses aren't going to block some RGB. My bigger concern is that the hoses are blocking airflow. So if these hoses are coming out back here, they're really potentially in the way of this fan, almost negating why this fan is there to begin with. If we take the radiator and spin it around so the hoses come out on this side, then I wonder, how are we going to turn the block? So if the hoses are coming out the other side, we'd have to turn the block in such a way that if I still want the hoses coming out towards the RAM, it creates sort of a loop. It's not like a straight hose anymore. So there is a challenge here that I hadn't considered, but once I start putting it together and I start seeing it, I'm like, okay, it's going to work no matter how I put it in. There's just really a question of preference and ease of install. Like, I don't want to work any harder than I have to. And the block should work adequately regardless. So it's really all about the look. What looks better to me? And it's hard to picture it. One thing I do want to say, though, is I don't want the hoses going over the top of the screen. If there's anything I don't want to block with the hoses, it's the top of this screen here, because that is really the main focal point. And if the hoses are going over it, I think that's a bad installation choice, and it takes away the real attraction, the star of the show. So I want to keep the hoses off to one side. I don't want to have to come over it or around it. I want it all off to one side. And that means blocking this is less important. We are definitely going to be blocking something no matter what orientation we put the case in or radiator in. Indeed. What should I do? Well, first and foremost, just looking at positioning, kind of feel like going all the way to one side doesn't look right. Going all the way to the other side doesn't look right. Looks like maybe cut the difference. And then I'm going to secure those and lock that position. Secure these screws is what I mean to say. And lock the position of the radiator right there. And you see, working within the case is far more difficult than being, than just simply taking the bracket out. And don't over tighten these screws. Your radiator is made of a soft metal, and it's very easy to strip the screws out. I wouldn't even recommend using an electric driver. You should just turn those by hand and don't over tighten them. Okay, so weird. I want to take a look at the manual real quick, because if they're showing these lines that power the RGB and fans coming out the other side, then that means these hoses are coming out the other side. That would be unusual if they recommended that installation. So let's see if they do. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what they were thinking, to be honest. They're not real clear where the electrical lines are coming from. On this diagram, it doesn't show them at all, meaning they're in the back. And on the other diagram, they're showing how to hook them up, but they're not being very clear with where they're coming from. Are they coming from the front or the back? Because it's not a photo, it's a drawing. They're kind of ignoring that. It certainly looks like the cables are coming from the back, but the default install is not putting them at the back. Somebody maybe made a mistake. And it says it should say Tryx right up here. Above the fans. I can't see anything, but it may be, you know, it's embossed in there in the same color. Where's my flashlight? Oh yeah, it does say Tryx right there. Right up there. Kind of hard to see it. I'm not quite sure who's supposed to see that. But yeah, those cables, in my opinion, they should be coming out this side because we've got all this room back here. You see, we've got these cutouts in the back of the motherboard case, or motherboard tray. Ideal for running those fan cables and hiding them so the customer can't see them from this side. Not that they're all that visible. They do kind of blend in a bit, but I think it looks terrible. I'm not quite sure why it comes out of the box pre-applied like that. It's pre-applied backwards, in my opinion, and does not follow their recommended install, and that's how they shipped it to us. So did somebody at the factory put the fans on backwards? Or did they do that with intention? Your guess is good as mine, but I don't like it, so we're going to correct it. You want something done right? Do it yourself. Don't expect your manufacturer of your motherboard is going to give you the right voltages on your CPU, PL1 and PL2. Don't assume the radiator manufacturer hasn't pre-installed things in the correct orientation. And by the way, that's true of all cases. This orientation is wrong for every single case. So I don't know what they were thinking when they did it. It's an easy thing to correct though, and this is the time to do it. So we're just going to take these 4 screws out. And remember, I want you to feel how loose these screws are in. They're barely in. And what we want to do is we want these cables coming out towards me, which means I have to rotate the fan around. And to do that, I'll have to disconnect it from the next fan over. Remember, they did all this for us when it would have been better if they'd left their hands off of it. Just gave us the fan and the screws and let us do it, because that would have been less work to just do it right the first time than to undo what they've done and then have to redo it. This should go on this way, and then these cables will attach to each other the same way in serial. And to tighten those, I think I'm just going to use a regular screwdriver. And be careful when you're tightening these screws up that you're not driving right in between the fins of the radiator. So don't be in too big of a hurry and be very aware. And again, you'll see I do those opposite corners because once I align this screw and this screw, then these two should automatically be aligned with the mounting hole. So just be real careful with these first two, because again, that radiator is a very soft metal and it's very easy for you to drive the screw in between those fins. And it'll still work, but it just, you know, every time you damage the fins, you are affecting the ability of the radiator's optimal cooling efficiency. And what I'm doing is I'm turning the screw without applying any downward force, because if I'm over the mounting hole, it should just start to tighten down. And if it isn't, then I don't have it aligned correctly. And it is very difficult for me to see, so I'm going to grab my flashlight because I can't see where the hole is. And these will be, again, opposite corners, so the other two, we shouldn't have any struggle with the other two. I need a third hand. looks like it's right there. Is that it? If you've over tightened one screw and it's tilting to one side, right, don't continually be stubborn and force something in that doesn't want to go. Try just taking the other one out entirely and start with the opposite side first. See, that one went in no problem now, and then let's make sure this one will continue to go in with no problem. Yeah, I think, maybe not. I've never had this much trouble aligning fans to a radiator before. And I don't know what Tryx is doing differently, but it's definitely not following. That's very strange. It's like it's liking one side and not the other. So I'm going to just bring this up a little bit more because it may be just tilting too much. If so, that's awfully precise. See, that's just not going anymore. It's just spinning. And that implies I am not lined up correctly with the mounting hole. And I'm not sure why. But I also can't see the mounting hole. Mounting hole's right there. So it looks like it needs to go kind of up and to the left. I should not have to assist it like this. That's a little freaky to me. And, you know, again, if we take out this side, just take it out entirely, then this looks like it goes in just fine. But the fan did move a bit. It moved up and to the left just a little bit, which means now I have to move it down and to the right. And it's not aligning with ease. It's very, it's almost like the mount points are just off by a little bit. It's not like they would have made the fans this way incorrectly. Gosh, that's weird. Okay, that's in just 2 turns. Finally. Now, I don't want to tighten those down too much and then find out the others are just that finicky as well. I don't think I've ever had to struggle that hard to put a fan on a radiator in my entire career. That lack of tolerance is concerning. And the reason it's concerning is it would be very easy for an end user to get frustrated and just keep torquing on it until they bend that soft metal of the radiator and then end up stripping the screw out. And again, if I just want to feel the tightness of these screws, they get right to a point where just the lightest turn stops. They don't take them any further than that. So the minute you're turning that screwdriver with 2 fingers and then it stops, don't take it any further. Doing so, you're bending in these rubber dampeners, and they're there to prevent the sound of the fan rotating, causing vibration of the plastic against the metal radiator. You need that rubber soft, and if you tighten down the screw too much, it bends the rubber in, reduces the thickness of that rubber and the flatness of it, and it reintroduces a better chance of hearing the vibrational sound of the fan spinning and plastic hitting the metal. And that's the punishment you get for over tightening. Some people were just raised that all screws need to be tight. And this goes against what maybe you were taught, but things have changed. And depending on the reason the screw is being put in, not everything has to be. And that one, by the way, look how easy that one went in. You have to consider the application, especially these days when technology has evolved to such a point that tightening a screw too much can cause more harm than having a screw that's too loose. All right, one last one. And again, these two can now be plugged back together like they were. There we go. Not a difficult thing to do, but you can see it can be time consuming. A job doesn't have to be difficult to take a long time. Sometimes an easy job can take all day. I've seen car thermostats where you got to remove the whole front of the engine to change out a $2 part. And I've seen other car engines where it's 2 bolts right on top of the engine. You pop it off, pop the new one on, change your gasket, you're back up and running in 20 minutes. So the indication of how much time it takes does not necessarily relate to the complexity of the job. This is just 12 screws and turning fans. It's pretty easy to do. But you know, sometimes just finding the mounting hole to get the screws to line up in can be an unexpected challenge. And it's the impatience and intolerance of the end user that will more often than not create a problem, if there is a problem to be had. So if you're just not in the mood for it, my advice is walk away until you're in a better mindset to have the patience to do it right. So now we have those fans on the correct orientation, I think. And that's going to mean we can run our cables out through the back. And then these cables here will be hidden towards the back. So even if they're hanging down like that, or if I push them up, they won't be seen regardless. So one more time, we're going to drop this back down through the top, like so. And then this end goes in first. This has 2 little tabs, and the top of the case here has 2 little slots. And then once that aligns, we can drop the rest of this in. And it looks like some of these cables are now getting underneath the lip. So I'm going to just assist these cables down away from the lid of the bracket. And that allows the bracket to sit. I don't think I need to lift that bracket up again. So I'm going to go ahead and take the 2 screws that were holding the bracket in. And if I need to take them back out, my concern is I'm going to misplace the screws or forget to put them back. So I'm going to put them right back where they belong, because I think I can do everything else without having to raise up that. But if I'm wrong, it's no big deal. Take them out. Here's one. Now, ordinarily, when I would be working on this in the shop, this would be laying flat. I would not have it upright like this. I can't really reach, as you can tell, very well, and I also can't see very well what's going on up there. If I was going to work on it vertically, I'd want it on the floor so I could loom over it and see everything. But ideally, on a workbench, I would lay it flat and I'd be working horizontally at it. So we do have our CPU power connectors here that could be interfering with that fan. And if there was ever a reason to loosen this, it would be to just make sure that we have enough slack to pull those cables through. Because if those CPU power cables hit that fan, not only might that fan stop turning, but if it's just making contact, it'll sound like a playing card in the spokes of a bicycle. Brrr, it'll drive you crazy. So that may be, these two appear to be coming off the same single cable.
And it may be something we're going to have to zip tie just to guarantee. Like right now, I know it's not touching, but I don't know in transportation and moving this around that wouldn't just eventually end up making contact. So nothing a nylon zip tie can't fix. And again, a black nylon zip tie holding the cable in position will not be an eyesore because it's going to match the color of the cable, which matches the color of the case and the motherboard, and likely isn't going to be seen. There's not much we can do about that other than if we can move the radiator more to the front. So if we can get this radiator moved closer to the front of this, that would be a better position as far as giving us space between the back of the radiator and the cables back here. And it's only because of the depth of this radiator that it's coming down that far that these cables are so close to it. Since we can't raise the lid, we can't raise this higher. If we had the ability to raise the lid of this case by another ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch, we'd have the clearance for those cables. Otherwise, we have to physically move the radiator forward to the front of the case, but I don't think it will align that way. When I was placing the radiator, and I'm looking at where it's going to line up with the slots that are provided, those look like the only slots we could use. But now that I'm reevaluating, was I so concentrated on keeping the radiator towards the back that I didn't really give it a fair shake at these other mounting positions? There's two other, if you look at the top of the case, there are two other mounting, no, I can't show you. There's two other places this direction. But as I recall, the other side then didn't line up. But now I wonder, is it possible that I can move this radiator this way? I was so focused on the forward and backward of it, it didn't occur to me that the depth, I mean, this is a pretty thick radiator with fan, would intersect right there with that cable. And it is clear, it's not in the way. But if we brought the radiator forward, if that's possible, then the chances of you identifying this or noticing it, this would likely kind of cover that up more. Making, again, this is purely aesthetics we're talking about. This is the kind of thing you will have to, these are the challenges and the obstacles if you decide to go for an aesthetic build. Positioning matters. If you're building for a business, a lot of times you don't have these options. It just goes in one way and it all closes up and you're done. And this is very much an enthusiast level build because only an enthusiast would spend this kind of time and money. No business could practically, justify the expense and time. So I'm guessing I can move that. And the more I think about it, the more I feel like maybe I missed an opportunity here. And I wrongly assumed that those were the only positions that radiator will align. And it's just going to bother me until I try. So let me at least try. At least it's an easier pill for me to swallow. If I cannot move it more forward, I can live with that cable there. If I can move it more forward, I'm going to feel better about the aesthetic quality of the build. It's just a weird situation for me. This does not happen in the real world where you're paid to do computer work for businesses. So, you have to understand my reaction to this. It's so weird that this is a thing we have to think about fixing. It's kind of like messing with my head a little bit that for home users, they're like, well, what's unusual about that? Yeah, I think you can see better now. We have a track here and a track here. So what I'm wondering is, clearly, if we use this track, there's no track down here. So there's nowhere for us to put the screws. But if we use this track way up at the front, will it align then with this track way up at the front? See how there's these little holes? And there's a track right here? I wonder if the distance between this track and this track is the same. Because I seem to recall just a moment ago when I was putting this in, that was the only way both mounting holes would align. But maybe I didn't really consider that one all the way to the extreme edge. And because you guys have a choice of all different shapes and sizes of radiators, the case manufacturer is trying to give you a one solution fits all. And I've never seen a radiator that would go that wide before, but maybe somebody makes one. I don't know. I better put my glasses on for this. So again, using the electric driver to take the screws out is completely safe. Where you want to be careful is when you're driving the screws in. Not that you can't use an electric driver, but you want to be real careful with it. And you might just want to turn those by hand when you're dealing with soft metals that's easy to strip out. See, that's what I don't want to happen. I don't want the screw to slide down the fins on the radiator and then bend them all on the way down. Okay, so if we move this up, will they align? I think they might. Let me just start one over here. Boy, I wish there was some way to get it kind of in the middle, but that is going to fit, I think. Then the next question is, with the radiator shoved that far forward, is there anything here, anything on the front that's going to prevent that radiator from sitting in there? So I want to find that out right now. So we'll put 2 screws in, just opposite corners here, before I, get carried away. And we'll keep them a little loose again so we can slide forward and backward, but tight enough that they're not going to just fall out. I don't want my radiator falling down through the board and then not only potentially damaging the radiator, but also damaging the RAM or anything else that would hit on the way down. All right, let's try a fitment test again. So if this went in this way, oh. I kind of like that. What do you guys think? I kind of like it. Much improved. I'm also not fighting with the cables back here. I'm giving myself this much more cable management in the back where you can't see it. Let's lock that one in position. Lock that one in position. I think that's the way to go. Yeah, that makes a big difference. It's going to make cabling look much cleaner. And then any noticing of that cable that was way up there, you probably can't even really notice it anymore. So much more hidden because the way this hangs down kind of blocks the angle a bit versus when it was right up against it and potentially interfering with the fans. It solves 2 problems. These cables cannot interfere with the fans anymore. And we even have the option of maybe pushing them up behind the radiator, making them even less noticeable. See what I'm getting at? Now, for everything else we have to do, I kind of feel like we're going to need to do a part 3 on this. And the reasoning is that because this is an aesthetic build, we have so much to consider with regards to not just the technical side of making it work, But the beauty of it, if you will, we have to consider what's going to look best. Where are my screws not going back in? Not see. Interesting. I think this mounting bracket's not aligning properly now, so let me just try and realign that. That's better. All right. Just want to lock that in place and then put the other screws into the radiator. Yeah, and so because you can put this radiator in any number of different cases of different eras even, it's not like Tryx is going to tell you the best mounting position for this case. And because this case fits so many different radiators from so many different manufacturers over so many different eras, they are not going to identify each radiator optimal installation. That's up to you, the builder, to determine that based on the unique components that you have decided to pair together. If you don't want to do that, don't do this kind of a build or buy something pre-built where you don't have to make those decisions. This is part of the fun, right? For people that do this and spend this kind of money, they consider this to be very fun and an enjoyable experience. For me, it's another day at the office. It's another build. It doesn't matter if it's got RGB or it doesn't, if it's AMD or Intel, micro ATX, full ATX, mini ATX, it's all the same. So I don't get the same thing out of it an Enthusiast does, but I do have pride in my work and I want it to look appropriate. So for certain cases where it's all glass, you know, that look is very, very important. And when you're paying extra money for flashy things to go inside, it wouldn't make any sense to not showcase them as best you can. Otherwise, why'd you spend the money? So you are going to, you know, need more time than a regular build, spend more money than a regular build, and ideally get more enjoyment out of it than a regular build. Let me see if you have any questions for me, because it is a very hot day today. I feel like I don't want to take this any further other than putting the screws back in the radiator. And I knew there were going to be some unexpected challenges. I did not expect I was going to have to rotate fans. I did not expect I was going to have two different positions for the radiator. In most cases, in my experience, it's going to align with two sets of slots, and that's it. This one, it will align with 4 sets of slots. Very unusual, but I think it's because of just how big this case is that it offers that opportunity that I'm not accustomed to. So, you know, I got a new experience today in that's now a thing. Or it might have been a thing for a while. I just never encountered that before. It's nice to have options. I'm not complaining. I'm just surprised. I'm surprised the fans are on backwards. I'm surprised the case can accommodate 2 different positions on a radiator this big, and I'm glad that they do. And the rest of the install then will require essentially getting our backplate installed, getting our the thermal compound is already on the block. That's why there's plastic on the bottom of it here. So then we'll keep the plastic on there to keep that thermal paste protected. When we've got this piece installed along with our thumb screws and standoffs, then the whole thing gets mounted up. Then we can cable up power to the fans. We have an RGB. I mean, we still have a good hour of work ahead of us. And that's why I don't want to take it on today, because I'm already sort of, well, I'm hot. And this room is getting very hot. And as we get into summer, I don't know, I'm probably gonna have to put a fan in here. It's starting to get hot. And so I'm getting exhausted more easily. I'm getting uncomfortable in the heat. And I want to take my time with this. If I'm trying to rush this under the clock, it's kind of defeating the point of something that you really should take time and pride with to showcase as much of it as we can, as clean as we can, so people look at it with awe. And you have to know the amount of effort you put into it is going to be seen by others. If you don't care if it's seen by others, why would you be building anything like this? Why would you be spending this extra money? One goes hand in hand with the other. So I'll address any other questions you've got for today, and then I'm going to wrap it up for today, and we'll pick this back up, I guess, Tuesday. Problem is, I have some other things scheduled this week, so I might have to postpone it for a couple more days. If I got it done off camera, I could do it later tonight when it's cooler and I'm, giving myself a little break. But then I don't get to share the build with y'all, so I don't want to do that either. David Graham says, is your air conditioning on? Have you been to Phoenix, David? There is a difference between an air conditioner and a walk-in refrigerator. We're in probably the peak heat of the day right now, and I can feel it. And it's uncomfortable. And yeah, there's only so much AC you can do. Barry Klein says, we've all invested so much time watching this build, you can't cheat and do it off camera. I agree. I agree that I don't want to do it off camera. But if I keep it on camera, that means we have to postpone when I can get back to it because I have other things I need to do on camera, other projects. So I'll have to just wait and see. I won't do it on the members only and then withhold all the other viewers from seeing the completion. So that means not tomorrow. And then well, we'll see what happens. Did you want something? Did I miss you?
No, I just wanted to say that
107 degrees Fahrenheit right now.
107 and
I'm
the
feeling
AC has been running crazily off. Like it finally shut off, but it's been pretty much off.
Oh, is it off right now?
Well, it's doing its schedule.
Well, yeah, it has to. If you keep running it, it'll freeze up. So it has to stop and let the ice melt off of it. And this is, well, yeah, but this is just starting, right? We've got 3 months of this. We're on week 1 of about 12 or 13 weeks of this.
Now, for me, the lizard, it's great.
No, I know you like you like to feel like a roast chicken. I, on the other hand, prefer the snowman. That's because I was raised in Detroit. We went to school in the wintertime with shorts on.
Right.
Well, we didn't, but
and uphill both ways, right?
With our little brother on our back.
Sandals.
That's right. Yeah. John Downey says, why not do it on camera later tonight? We rely a lot on the sun for our lighting in Studio C here. And while I do have additional artificial lighting, I've not set it up. I don't have anywhere to put it. I'm afraid the video will be too dark. But you never know. I mean, maybe I get in a mood and I want to get it done. I do like working at night. However, I mean, I would never say never, but I'd rather keep it on part of a regular schedule. But it's possible. Barry Klein says, long live cliffhangers. Well, I didn't think it was going to be this difficult. Or it's not really difficult. It's just a lot of modification to accommodate this case. And really not a big deal. But it is still taking time, much more time than I didn't plan for. When traditionally, with pretty much every case I work on, this is an exception. When I pull a radiator with fans already on it, it can usually just mount right out of the package, right up to the case in one position only, and that's it. The fact that we have multiple positions, well, 2 to choose from, the fact that the fans were on in the wrong direction are things I don't normally have to do. Normally it's ready to eat right out of the package. Just take it out and install it. The fact that we had to make those 2 corrections or adjustments ate into more time than I just didn't think it was. I didn't see that coming. And I want to do it right first and do it quickly second or third. Like quickly is further down the list. And yeah. And again, while I'm doing all that, I'm not talking to you guys. I'm not interacting. I'm talking at you, but not really to you. So here I like to take a minute just for us to talk to each other and try and divide up the time on the video between the work and then the conversation. John Downey said if your AC is freezing up, it's an indication the AC unit is low on refrigerant. The AC unit gets regular checkups, like every 6 months it gets checked up on that. And I think you just don't live in Arizona. I think you're coming from a different place than we are. You simply cannot run an AC 24 hours a day and expect that that's not going to freeze up no matter any condition of AC. The only way you can really fix it is you insulate the house better, close curtains, try and darken the place up. You know, the sun is brutal in Phoenix. Again, I don't know if you've ever been to Phoenix, but I would challenge you to stand out in the summer sun in the middle of the afternoon without any sort of protection. There's no clouds. You are as close to the sun, apart from getting into a rocket, that you're ever going to get here on Earth, or maybe climbing a mountain. But usually when you climb a mountain and the air gets thinner, it gets cooler. So the amount of heat coming off of the sun, you really feel it in Phoenix on a hot summer day. And when you've got a metal air conditioner sitting on top of the roof, getting the full brunt force of that unobstructed and oppressive heat coming off of the sun, while its internal electronics and motor are spinning and the refrigerant is running, it is inevitably always going to freeze unless it stops every once in a while and lets that ice melt off. And the good news is the ice will melt off pretty quickly in the daytime. And that's usually built into the programming of the unit. And it's a very common thing you'll experience in Phoenix. I can't speak for other parts of the country, but given that we have a very dry, low humidity, atmosphere, and on top of that, traditionally, we'll have over 100 degrees in daily, every day, for over 100 days in a row. I want you to think about that. Like if we go over here and type in like Google, and we say, how many 100-degree days did Phoenix have in 2024? And I want to show you the search results in case you think I'm exaggerating, and I want you to understand the kind of work an air conditioner might have to do. So if we look at these Google results, in 2024, Phoenix had 143 days of temperatures at or above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The second most on record, only behind 2020, which had 145 such days. And if you want your house to be at 78 degrees, that means your air conditioner has to cool the outside weather by 20 to 40 degrees. That's an extreme load on a single air conditioner. And the alternative is to buy 2 air conditioners and let them both work in tandem. But then you've got a much higher electric bill, higher maintenance costs. And at some point, you cut the difference, right? With what you can afford for the electric bill and the maintenance versus how important it is for you to stay cool. If it's really important for you to stay cool, don't live in the summertime in Phoenix. Go get yourself, go get a house somewhere in northern Arizona like Flagstaff where you can get away from the heat. But we endure it. Prescott's still pretty warm, but not as hot as Phoenix. Phoenix is a valley, and the heat just focuses in like a magnifying glass. It's really, really intense in the summertime. It's not like anything you'll ever experience in the United States. Maybe parts of Texas and New Mexico. But mostly, when we talk about the Phoenix metropolitan area, it's 100% misery in the summer. And air conditioning companies make good money out here. And it's really frustrating when an air conditioning company is exposed on the local media for ripping people off, selling them things they don't need. Aren't they busy enough with honest work? Like, why would you need to make up repairs in the summer? You've got waiting customers, I guarantee it. You cannot, especially if you're older or you have pets, if your air conditioning breaks in the summer, you may not survive, or your pets may not survive. You need to go to a hotel until you can get that AC fixed. And that means you either learn to fix it yourself, or you wait for the AC company. And come August, it could be a 2-week waiting time before they can get to you. So when you find out they're also, victimizing people by doing repairs that don't need to be done, which is causing you to wait longer for their service, it's so offensive to me. It should be criminalized to the point of, 10 years in jail minimum. That's so torturous, not only to the finances of their customers, but to the other customers waiting for service. And that's why in many cases I fixed my own AC, because I couldn't wait and I couldn't afford a hotel. What am I going to do? Finding a hotel that'll take pets, not exactly easy. And especially if there's any concerts or sports activities, forget about it. They're all sold out. So it can be a real problem. And it's a lot more to do with the physics of AC versus heat, nature versus man-made. Nature's going to win every time, but you can keep throwing money at it so long as you have money to throw. John Lewis says, thank you for the content, especially in the heat. Yeah, John joins us from Brazil, and they've got the heat and humidity, right? Andy says he's got a friend that lives in Phoenix, but he's got a summer cabin in Greer. Greer is beautiful. They just had a fire there though, but Greer is where Arizona and New Mexico meet, kind of right in the middle of both states. It'll be the far western side of New Mexico and the far eastern side of Arizona. And it's a city most people outside of Arizona have never heard of before, and it is stunning. It is, it doesn't look like Arizona. It's woodsy and green, and there's deer and just beautiful scenery. And if I bring up Greer, Arizona here on Google, and I'll share the screen with you here for those of you around the world who maybe this first introduction even hearing of Greer, I'll hit the images button. And you can see there's log cabins in woods, and streams and rivers, and there's a very low population. You don't see many houses. A lot of these places are like rental places where people get away. And the temperature in Greer right now is probably significantly cooler. Yeah, it's 30 degrees cooler. It's significantly cooler. So you can understand why somebody would want to live the summers in Greer, and at the winter time where they get snow, and again, you don't have all the big city there. You don't have a Walmart on every corner and a grocery store, a big giant Kroger chain of grocery stores. So your shopping is more limited and more expensive because you don't have as many places to compete. And it does show that they're actually going to get some rain on Wednesday, likely. But if you look at Phoenix, Arizona temperature today, by comparison, it's saying 104, but it depends where you measure. Phoenix is a big, big town. So the temperature can vary by 3 to 4 degrees from east to west or north to south, depending on where you're at. And even this is an excessive heat warning today. Like they published that to the citizens to say, look, today is excessive heat. So limit your time outdoors, at least during the hot hours of the day, which is about right now. Usually the temperature will continue to go up until about 5 o'clock, somewhere between 4 and 5 o'clock, and then you'll start to see the temperature come back down. And it won't get dark here until about 8 o'clock at night. And then, of course, you'll start feeling it cool down to maybe 20 degrees cooler. Maybe. certainly about 10 degrees cooler. Well, you can see here the 82 is what it'll drop to at about 3 o'clock in the morning. And this is just starting. This is going to get worse for the next 100+ days. And yeah, I have no anxiety about that whatsoever. Oh, I'm getting too old for this, man. I'll tell you what. When I was younger, I could endure it a lot better. But also when I was younger, it wasn't this hot for this long. So it's definitely getting hotter. It's not just me. Andy said the fire that started in Greer moved mostly to the north and east. Well, that's good to know, because it's a beautiful area. Be ashamed to see it destroyed with fires. John Lewis says, in 2024, Eugene, Oregon experienced record-breaking heat waves in July with the city reaching 100 degrees. Yeah, and so did Oklahoma. Oklahoma was getting temperatures over 100 degrees and that high humidity. If you give me a choice to be in 104 degrees in Phoenix or 104 degrees in Oklahoma, I'll take Phoenix, because that's a whole nother kind of misery. But Greer is beautiful. I should move the studio to Greer. The only problem is I'll have to broadcast through Morse code. I don't think they've got much in the way of bandwidth, maybe Starlink or something like that. You know, the pros and cons of living in a rural area, especially up in the mountain like that. Mountains. Gary wants to know if the hoses are going to reach the CPU from the position we placed it. Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. I mean, the hoses are plenty long. See here? No problem at all. And then as far as the hoses kind of splitting away like that, we'll just grab some, there's a couple things. We can grab some black zip ties just to keep them together, or we can get the little combs they sell that clamp on, but they're pretty far apart on this radiator. I don't think they sell a hose clamp that wide. Normally you keep them pretty side by side, and then you get a small split at the block, and it's usually not quite this wide at the radiator. So there will be sort of a visual gap. There's not much we can do about on this side. But yeah, it would reach all the way back here, just to give you an idea just how long that hoses are. Scott says he doesn't like the direct sun at 60 degrees. Yeah, usually you get clouds and wind. If there's clouds and wind, it's a lot easier to tolerate. Otherwise, it's like being in an oven. Las Vegas has hot temperatures, but they also have high winds, so they're more like a hairdryer. And then any place else, you'd also have clouds, and the sun may go behind the clouds, and then, you know, the day gets a little dimmer. That kind of freaked me out in the vacation in Michigan when all of a sudden someone turned the dimness down in the middle of the afternoon. I'm like, what just happened? Oh, and then you can see the clouds, and then the day gets bright again when the cloud moves away from the sun. And you all might go, well, duh. Well, I happen to live somewhere where that very rarely ever happens. It's either the sun is behind the clouds all day, or there are no clouds all day. And it's mostly, from day to day, no clouds, nothing. Just nothing, just raw, unfiltered sun boring down from the time it rises above the horizon until dusk, and it goes down below the horizon. On the plus side of that, the sunsets in Phoenix are always beautiful. And John Lewis confirms he's in Bahia, Brazil. The salt that I buy for my salt grinder, I think, is Bahia. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Am I remembering that right? Do they have salt mines there? Yeah. So this is the salt I will buy for the salt grinder, for table salt that I get on Amazon. And it's coarse crystals, so the grinder can grind it to a more fine. It's inexpensive. It's $8 for 2 pounds. That lasts a long time. And I'm guessing That must be from Brazil. I never really thought about it before, but now that that's the second time I've heard that name. Let's say where it's from. Ingredients. Where's the source? Well, this says Sonora, Mexico. But this says manufactured by product of Mexico. All right, well, I guess it's not Brazil. When you mentioned that name, I'm like, I've seen that name before. Well, that's a squirrel moment, wasn't it? Speaking of which, I need to order some more of that. We bookmark that for later. I keep forgetting. My salt grinder's almost empty. John Lewis says the city that he lives in is called Salvador. The state he lives in is called Bahia. And the country he's in is Brazil. So like Phoenix, Arizona, United States. I gotcha. Salvador, Bahia, Brazil. I'm learning. Thank you for the lesson in geography. How many other cities in Brazil? Just a few others. I got one down. Bill Sony says, is that ice salt for the snow? No, that would be a much bigger bag. It'd probably be like a 30-pound bag if it was used for that purpose. Or intended to be used for that purpose. Barry Klein wants to know, does Phoenix have cooling shelters for the aged to escape the heat, or is it just normal to be in an oven that they don't have that? In Pennsylvania, we have them locally in times of extreme heat. They are intended for homeless, unhoused people to get them out of the heat. They'll have these cooling shelters and they'll give away bottles of refrigerated water. And they ask people to donate bottled water, just a normal size of bottled water, and they'll refrigerate it and hand it out to the homeless and unhoused population. But for those that are elderly, they're generally either in their own house where they control the temperature, or they're in an assisted living facility where the temperature is controlled for them. So in either case, they would not need to, like a regular person that's retired or has a house here would not need to go somewhere else for their air conditioning. They would typically be unhoused people that need that. There have been people, especially elderly people, whose air conditioning stopped working and then they couldn't afford to fix it, or they couldn't get a company out in time, or they let the landlord know and the landlord didn't fix it, and then they've died of heat stroke, heat-related illness. That happens every summer. But the same happens in the cold weathers too, cold weather climate. Iceman says, I thought you had good AC in that location. This is considered good AC. Yeah. Compared to the other locations, this works great. Like Studio B, some of the, like that AC was noisy and it barely did anything. This is quiet and you can actually feel it. It's just, you're competing against the sun, right? So if you buy another AC unit and you want to pay the added electric bill, or you want to pay somebody to, double up the insulation everywhere, you're at tens of thousands of dollars. I don't have that kind of money. So from my perspective, this AC is fantastic. $55 Sting dude says, yeah, it can get a little warm here in Oklahoma. So what can happen is your AC startup capacitor will blow out and keep spares on hand. That's a good thing to keep a spare of, for sure. It's a 5-minute job, and an AC company might take a week to come out and then charge you 5 times the amount while you're living in misery waiting for them. You can change it yourself safely. There's enough videos online, and it'll cost you like under $30, and the labor's free if you do it yourself. assuming you understand what it is and what it does and when it needs to be replaced. That's what you're paying those people, other people for. Barry Klein said, I was in Phoenix a few years ago in August. That is the worst possible time you could ever go to Phoenix. He says, Dante's Inferno is a good tourist guide to Phoenix in August. Yeah. It's the month I hate in Phoenix is August. Look, August is going to be hot and humid no matter where you are in the United States. In Michigan, it's going to be hot and humid. In Phoenix, it gets hot and humid in August, and it's just miserable. But all the other months are a lot more tolerable. So, 1 month out of 12 being terrible, and it's pretty consistent every August. There's never a good August in Phoenix. So I know it's coming. I know to be prepared for it. It won't be a surprise. Then it doesn't last forever. So it is what it is. But if I were coming out for vacation, I would not come out in August. I mean, unless you've got a thing for high heat and humidity, in which case you might really like Bangkok or Vietnam. Kevin McNeil wants to know if our front and side panels are going to clear. Yeah, absolutely. The amount of space, I don't know how well you can see, but the glass goes here, and then the radiator's here. So there's quite a large distance. We're not even close to the edge of the glass. The glass attaches to the outside edge. So as long as we're behind this edge, we're clear on both the front. Again, it's going to clip here, the glass down here on the outside, not on the inside of the case. So as long as nothing inside of the case is going outside of the case, we won't have any issues putting the glass back on. And Cougar did a great job of that consideration by giving you that much space. From that first mounting point to this edge, that clip right there is where the glass clips on. And the glass clips on outside the case, not inside the case. And honestly, even if it did go inside the case, I still have a good inch between the end of the radiator and this lip right here. So I could even run cables or even an LED strip up in here if I wanted to add more RGB. I think this has way more than enough RGB. But if I wanted to, I could. Yeah, so it's not even close as far as any tolerance concerns. We have lots and lots of room. In fact, I'd say there's more room now than most cases have standard, the way that a regular NZXT case is built. This gives you 3 times more space than almost every other case with a front panel I've looked at. Not all, but most. Michael M. said 30 degrees Celsius is too hot for most people in New Zealand. Yeah, well, I can only use my imagination. I've never been. Our friend Mitch Morrison, he's got a fairly nice new place, modern place with a modern AC, and he maintains it like a stickler. And even then, he's got one room that just doesn't cool down. So he ended up getting one of those portable AC units that you've got to vent it out the window. And And in order to cool that room down effectively, he's got to close the door and separately air condition that room apart from everything else. And he doesn't live in a mansion, okay? This is not a big place, but it's that hot. And that includes putting blinds and curtains on the windows to help block out the heat. It includes having the air conditioner run. And the air conditioner simply is not going to provide every room of every size with the same amount of temperature. Wherever the thermostat is dictates when the AC turns on and off. Your thermostat's in the hallway, and the hallway is a relatively small room compared to every other room in the house. You'll need to compensate where you want the rooms to be comfortable and the hallway might be cold. And unless you're putting an individual temperature sensor, not only in every room, but some rooms may be large living areas where there could be a left side and a right side. For that reason, some people may have two air conditioners, one for one side of the house, one for the other side of the house. But if you got a house that big, you could probably afford two air conditioners and $1,000 a month in an electric bill. For me, I don't live that life. So Amara would probably freeze to death too. So while she's basking in the glory of the heat and I'm miserable, I go into the car, have the AC cranked up, and she's shutting the vents off, which I'm happy with because that just brings more air to my side of the car. And she'll bring a jacket with her in summertime. She'll get that cold from the way I like the AC. So we both make sacrifices, too hot or too cold. Andy says, what's up for tomorrow? Tomorrow we'll do our traditional members only video. And what we do for the members is we spend time with our members, the people that make these videos possible for the general public to watch, to just hang out together. It's much slower paced. We'll have maybe 40, 50 people versus 300 plus. And it's a lot more informal and a little bit behind the scenes information of what's going on, what's coming up, what I'm working on, maybe some more personal information regarding the challenges of the studio renovations or challenges with customers that I don't want to put publicly that could come back to haunt me. So the members do get that more informal hangout type video just for them on Monday, and that's all I'll do on Mondays. And then Tuesday through Sunday, it's pretty much whatever time permits, whatever opportunities exist. We try to keep the videos open for everybody the rest of the week, with only Friday really being dedicated to really trying to put out more higher end content, more expensive content on Fridays only for the general public. That again, the members make possible. So you understand my dilemma when the members who make the videos possible open up the door and the opportunity for the general public to harass. And that's the dilemma I sit in with regards to what kind of interaction I want the public to have that aren't supporting us, who feel they have a right and an entitlement that they don't have, that they cannot enforce. So when you're dealing with people like that, the best thing you can do is shut them down. Just push them aside and ignore them because they don't offer any value. And those people wouldn't be there if the content wasn't there for free for them to watch. And the only reason the content is free for them to watch is because of the members. So that is a real struggle. And I'll talk about stuff like that on the members only videos to say, you know, do you guys have any ideas or any objections to me just shutting down the public side of any communication? They can watch quietly. The downside is it's not all the public. It's just a portion of the public. But unfortunately, it's the only source of frustration. It's coming from a small portion of the, it's not coming from a small portion of the members. It's coming from a small portion of the public who aren't contributing anything back, that small portion, other than harassment. So I don't know. I don't know the answer for that yet. And until YouTube provides actual or requires actual verification to stop people from having burner accounts, I don't know what choice I have to endure it, manually block individuals every single time they come in that want to behave that way, or just prevent everybody in that category, free viewer, from interacting with live videos. And you can see I can't make up my mind. You know, I keep wavering back and forth. Because when I shut down public interaction, 95% of the public is being punished for what 5% of the public is doing. And then for the members to have to listen to me go on and on about it, when they're doing everything they can. I'm not asking any more for the members. And if it was just for members, made for members, only for members, all of that frustration goes 100% away. But that also means a lot of great viewers that are very kind and very much a part of this community, they get shut out unfairly. I don't know. I'm putting it on YouTube's fault. You know, they need to verify that accounts are real, they're not bots, and they're not one person with 27 accounts. There's nothing I can do until YouTube implements that. John Paul Bacon said the stream today has been a lot like a members only stream for the most part. Yeah, so for people that are wondering what a members only stream might look like, sometimes we do show content. I will show repairs or builds that never get released publicly. It is a gift to the members, and that gift would not have as much value if it were then re-gifted. So I definitely want I want the members to really get something more out of this than just getting the content. I want them to have special content just for them. And the question is, should all content just be for members? And again, if YouTube had verification on accounts, the harassment would stop, because then we could hold the actual person that's hiding. We could pull them out of hiding and hold them accountable. Until then, they're sort of free to harass without any repercussion. So I have to individually ban their burner accounts, and they can just continually make them, and I can continually ban them, and it's just going around in circles. And they seem to enjoy it. He says, make it subscriber only, make it scheduled for a week. Yeah, I think I scheduled it for 5 hours. We definitely, when we set subscriber only mode to like 20 minutes, they will subscribe and wait the 20 minutes during a regular live stream to the point to harass. So if you have to make them invest in it a little more, they're less likely going to put that investment in, but some still will. It's only when it's costing them money does it stop. Or only when they know we know who they are and we can hold them accountable, then it stops. Very few people have the mental capacity to knowingly and willfully expose themselves to litigation and consequences voluntarily without being prodded. That they just wake up one day and go, I'm going to harass somebody. And it's just a cowardly activity, right? It's no different than some young punk going after stealing an old lady's purse because they figure the old lady can't defend herself. Really? Really? That you think that's it? That is your target, is some elderly person because they're not going to put up much of a fight? What does that say about that young person doing that? But we do have these people in our society. And unfortunately, that represents a portion of the public viewing audience on YouTube as well, the same cowardly mentality. So once we have to make it required that they have to identify themselves, much of that just stops immediately. Wild Soul says, I never realized it's such a problem. It is absolutely a problem the size of which is in portion to the size of the channel. If you have a small channel with very few viewers, you also have much less harassment. If you have a popular channel with millions of subscribers and viewers, you almost can't even deal with it. The best way, I think, would look at how Tom Cruise keeps himself away from the public. You don't just see Tom Cruise out shopping. You don't see that. You don't see Paul McCartney going to a restaurant and dining out at some, Red Lobster. He can't. It's just too much harassment. Even from fans that claim to like you, claim to be fans, harass you. So you will trade some of your anonymity and some of your privacy to be able to have the freedom to go and do things, the greater your level of celebrity is. Now, thankfully for me, I'm not that, I'm a drop in a bucket, but it's enough, and it's more than the average YouTube channel. So that is the curse of, hey, I wish I was more popular. Well, now that you're more popular, you're going to be attacked more. The more attacked you are, the more popular you are. It's just the way the world works. Doesn't matter if you're president, whatever, doesn't matter who the president is through the course of American history, they're always attacked, assassination attempts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas if they never became president and they were just a working person like the rest of us, going to work every day, you'd probably be left alone outside of just some maybe random attack because you're there. Wrong place, wrong time. But the minute you become known, you become, the more known you become, the bigger a target you become. For whatever reason, it's just human behavior. So what I see a lot of big channels do is they don't acknowledge it. You'll never see a reply from Linus Tech Tips on Twitter. He doesn't reply to anybody. He'll never reply to your email, because all the reply does is add fuel to the fire. It doesn't matter if it's a complaint or a compliment. Any sort of reply instigates that conversation. And so the best thing you can do is ignore it. Or you hire people to handle it for you. You have assistants talk on your behalf, which costs you money, right? And so wouldn't you rather have that money for yourself than just wasting it on protection just to interact when it's not even you interacting? You know, when somebody goes to Comic-Con, a celebrity, they're paid to be there. They're not doing it because they want to. They're doing it for the money. And you will line up and you will have something. Sometimes you have to buy a piece of merch for them to sign. It could be a photo they're selling, or you can bring your own and you have to get in line, and it's from this time to this time on this day, and that's it. And they're gone. They ain't sticking around to hang out with you guys. They're leaving out the back door, sneaking out. The rest of you can come and go as you please. Which one's better? I don't know. Is it worth it? Well, I guess that's for you to decide. Dotsy says, greetings from Ireland. Slancha. Dotsy said, I've been watching your YouTube channel for years, but I haven't checked in the past 2 to 3 years. I built a computer myself from watching your YouTube channel. Keep doing what you do. Right on. That story never gets old. All right, that'll wrap it up for me for today. Thanks for hanging out. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And we'll pick up where we left off maybe as soon as Tuesday, depending on the construction schedule. Sometimes they get really noisy with the power tools here, and I just don't know what they're doing from day to day. So we'll play it by ear, but as soon as I can get back to this, I will. And like I said, we're going to make sure we do it right and it's going to look good, rather than trying to, meet some imaginary deadline. So unless somebody wants to buy it from me and they need it by a certain date, we'll do it at our convenience. That'll wrap it up for me for today. Thanks to Mara, of course, our channel administrator. He does all this work in the background, adding all the notes to everything we talked about. That Corsair keyboard that's on sale, the Revived or whatever they call it, $20. It's a great keyboard. You won't find a better keyboard for $20. And then, in fact, if you do, let me know. I put it that way. Our friends over at SCD Keys that have the Windows and Microsoft Office legitimate legal license keys with 6 months of included support. Save money with the 30% coupon code that we offer only to our viewers. So it's just an advantage you have for being a viewer here. And you can have peace of mind. If I'm endorsing it, it's real, and I stand behind everything I endorse. Even though I'm not making any commission off of it, I want to make sure that my viewers, my audience, my fans, the people of this community are protected in the same way that I offer that same assurance to my real life customers. I don't play by 2 different sets of rules, just so you know. So that'll wrap it up. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thanks, of course, to Charlie Purdy with a very generous contribution, an Amazon gift card today. Very generous. And thanks to all of you, all the members especially, as well as anybody that's given super chats or is helping us underwrite these videos, but also just for being the part of the amazing community that you are, because the community itself is priceless, and it wouldn't be the same without you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.